Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special On the Edge of Your Ejector Seat edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm feeling so excited.
Wow. You know what, Larry Stroth? I feel like you have a license to thrill tonight. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of thrill, who are you, sir?
I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Sean Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm Gonus, James Gonus.
Oh, nice. Oh, this is going to be good. Man, he's on. All right. Well, if you haven't picked it up already, also by the title on this file and everything advertising this episode is one we've been, like many others, threatening to do forever.
Oh,
it's a massive topic, and It is one that has been going strong since its inception.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this topic is...
What is this fantastic topic?
James Bond.
James Bond.
James Bond. James Bond. Remember? And he's driving with the thing, and he presses the button, and the guy's like, woo, and the girl's like, hey. Remember that?
Yes.
I remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Oh, man.
Hey,
And
James,
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yes.
How do we tackle this topic? What
Gargantuan.
possible guest could we get who could fully detail what we need to know?
For this one, we've had to pull out the stops. We have a very, very special guest indeed. It all started for him at the age of 9 when his dad took him to see a movie called Goldfinger, which proved extremely influential. His book, The James Bond Bedside Companion, first published in 1984, was nominated for an Edgar Allan Poe Award, and it inspired me to become more than just a casual 007 fan. He has since published over 40 books and is best known as being the third author and first American to take over the Ian Fleming mantle in writing the James Bond novels.
Wow.
Ooh.
He's written 6 original 007 novels, 3 movie novelizations, and 3 short stories. He's also published many critically acclaimed thrillers, including the Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell series.
Cool.
As if all that weren't enough, he's also worked as a video game designer and a director and composer of stage and film scores. He's taught courses in film genres and history. He's written for Cinema Retro magazine since the beginning. He was an ambassador to Japan's Kagawa Prefecture. And for 16 years, he served on the board of directors of the Ian Fleming Foundation. Guys, let's welcome a very special guest, Raymond Benson.
Raymond Benson!
Raymond,
Dude,
oh my God.
Is there anything you don't do? My God,
I don't
sir.
paint or sculpt.
But you're almost like a Bond villain, but for good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. It's very nice of you to have me on.
Thank you for making it.
You've
Yeah.
been trying to get me in LA. You know, my trips to LA, James has said, you got to come and be on the show. And, you know, now that we have Zoom,
Yeah.
Right.
we can do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank goodness for that virus, huh? Boy,
Silver lining.
Yeah. Silver lining, right.
So
19. COVID-19.
You know, I gotta say it's true though, because when I picked up the Bedside Companion in '84, I mean, I liked the Bond films. I never really thought that much about them. But what you did in your book, Raymond, is that you spent, there was a lot of time focused on the novels, which I hadn't really read. I was a teenager, and how the novels compared to each other, how they compared to the films, the inner life of James Bond in the novels, some of his thoughts, some of his concerns, and then how the films also compared to each other. And it made me think of the whole franchise in a way that I never did before. And it stimulated me and inspired me to think more about it. And I've thus become this big James Bond fan because of that experience.
Well, thank you. When I set out to do that book, there was no book like that. There had been a couple of books just on the movies. There had been a couple of biographies of Ian Fleming, but they were out of print. There had been a couple of books on the novels, but they were out of print. And I wanted something that had all of that stuff, plus a whole history of the franchise, all in one big coffee table book. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I've read other books more recently on James Bond, because I also collect books about Bond in the franchise.
How dare you?
And it's amazing, like how many other like Bond authors and craftsmen cite that book as being a big inspiration to them.
Yeah, I know. And I know a lot of those authors too.
I'm sure.
As far as the whole franchise goes, but as far as the films, I mean, am I correct in saying that it's, as far as an American movie franchise, isn't it the single longest running and most successful film franchise?
It's the second largest. It's the second longest running, most successful franchise after Godzilla.
Oh,
yeah, that's true.
Made by one production company.
Right, that's true. Okay, right. Yeah, right, because Godzilla was in 1954, right, and Dr. No hit big time in 62 and is going strong since. You're right. Both franchises have been going strong since then.
Hey, now talk about a perfect mashup, right? Godzilla and
Bond versus Godzilla.
Yeah,
there.
And the bad guys are using Godzilla as their terror weapon.
Yeah, Blofeld would get a hold of like controlling kaiju. Yeah.
Well, Raymond, can you?
I'll get the meeting.
How did James Bond come about? How was he created, and when did that start?
Well, it started with Ian Fleming, of course. Ian Fleming was, a really complicated guy. He was very much of the upper crust British Empire. He was the second son of a family that was very wealthy. His grandfather had started a merchant bank, and so the Flemings are one of the wealthiest families in Britain. And but being a second son, at that time there was the whole primogeniture thing where the oldest son inherits everything.
Right.
So he was a second son, and so he knew he had to go out and make his way in the world. Somehow he was never wanting for money, but he had to he didn't have really any interest in the banking side of the family. But so his first his teenage and his 20s, he was kind of lost. He was kind of a playboy and a man about town, and he worked a little bit as a journalist, and he worked as a stockbroker by day, but by night he was this mysterious playboy, and would entertain women in his flat at night with champagne and meals and
fantastic.
And he, gambled, and he was basically playing, the life of James Bond without the danger.
Wow,
that's the part I like.
Then in 1939, he got this out of the blue phone call from Admiral John Godfrey, who was the director of naval intelligence, and he needed an assistant. And somebody had recommended Fleming, and Fleming thought that might be fun. So he said, sure. So right on the eve of World War II, Ian Fleming became basically the number 2 man of British naval intelligence.
No.
And so all through the war, he worked in the Ministry of Defense in London and helped plan and execute and all these espionage activities. He was not a field agent, despite these made-for-TV movies that you've seen, The Life of Ian Fleming, starring Jason Connery and Dominic Cooper and all these. They've made like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
They always have him acting like James Bond, jumping on trains and, fighting guys and stuff. Never did that.
He was in the office.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
He did go out on field assignments just to, meet agents or, drop off stuff and that kind of thing. But he was more like an M.
Okay.
Oh.
Huh.
And one of the things he did was he formed an assault unit called the Number 30 Assault Unit and trained them. These guys would go into bunkers, enemy bunkers, after the Germans had been cleaned out, and they would search for intelligence. They knew what to look for and extract it and bring it back to England. And this team that he created got all kinds of citations and medals and stuff. So. Yeah, so he did a lot during the war.
So it was like the intelligence side of espionage, really.
Right, exactly. And after the war, he accepted a job, a nice cushy job at the Times, the London Times, as the foreign manager. That is because he had contacts all over the world now.
Right.
So he was perfect to be the manager of foreign news coming in from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he did as a day job. And he told them, I will take the job only if you give me January and February off each year with pay. Because he had bought some property in Jamaica right after the war and built a house there that he named Goldeneye.
No.
He vowed that he would spend every January and February in Jamaica because he hated winter in England.
Wow.
Sure.
So Lord Kemsley, who was the boss, said, well, that's a stiff order, but okay, you can have it. And that's what he did every year for the rest of his life. Every January and February, he would be in Jamaica.
Wow.
So that brings me up to 1952, and he's about to get married for the first time. He's 43 years old, and he's in Jamaica, January of 52, and he's a little nervous, and his wife to-be says, why don't you write something, get your mind off of it? And he thinks, oh, well, I've always wanted to write a thriller. And so he writes Casino Royale.
No.
And then he gets married and they go back to England. And that's when he revises and adds and deletes to his manuscript. He turns it into his publishers in the summertime. And it's published the following spring. In 1953 was when Casino Royale was first published. And by then, January and February, what had he already done? He'd already written his second book. So for every winter that he was in Jamaica, he would write a book until he died.
So when it comes to Casino Royale, is it true that before it was actually published, there were a lot of people around him that weren't all that crazy about this book?
Well, his wife, for one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, his wife was very in the literary circles, you know.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Somerset Maugham was a cousin.
Oh man!
Wow.
Out with all the the literary types, and
so this was a little too much fun.
Yeah, and this was thrillers were kind of considered lower.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pulp fiction.
Common.
Yeah. But obviously he showed them.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So
really.
was that first book, was that a success or?
Well, considering the amount of the first printing was only 4,750 copies, and they sold out in a couple of days.
Wow.
So that's a success.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't call that a big, massive bestseller, but they kept reprinting and reprinting and reprinting and reprinting, and it's never been print.
Right.
So over the years, it's been a bestseller. But they measure a bestseller by how much it sells like in 1 week.
Right. Okay.
So it wasn't until they were printing, thousands and thousands of the first printing of one of his books that he really became a bestseller. But that was in the later 50s. In the late 50s.
And you said that was like 53, right? When it
53 is when it came out. It came out in America a year later in 54.
Wow. So then it was pretty quick, though, then that Hollywood took interest, right? Because it was 1954 that Barry Nelson played James Bond in an episode of Climax, right?
That's right.
So that was very quick. That right away,
that was kind of a fluke. He had written Casino Royale, and he'd written Live and Let Die, which is the second book. Casino Royale just got published, and then CBS TV came calling because they were desperate for material. They had this program called Climax, and what they did was adapt mystery stories like Sherlock Holmes or whatever. And they filmed them live in the studio on chemistry.
Right.
Really?
And they thought, okay, here's this new book. Let's grab the rights to that. So Fleming sold them the one-time only rights to do this television adaptation of Casino Royale. And Barry Nelson played an American James Bond, and Peter Lorre was Le Chiffre.
Right.
No.
Who is great, by the way.
Yeah, he is great. Yeah. And, it's very quaint and it's very creaky and kind of old school.
Right.
But it's not bad.
No, it's not.
It's kind of faithful. It's pretty faithful to the story, even though Bond is American. They call him Jimmy Bond.
Jimmy Bond, yeah. And he's more like the Mickey Spillane version of Bond.
Right,
you know?
Yeah.
But
kind of like that. Yeah.
Did Fleming have anything to do with the script, or he just kind of sold the rights? Okay.
No, he just sold the rights. And then he immediately sold the film rights to Casino Royale to a producer named Gregory Ratoff in England. And Gregory Ratoff, throughout the 1950s, tried to get it made, but he just couldn't get the backing for it. Then he died, and his widow sold all of his rights and properties to Charles K. Feldman, who was a producer and agent in Hollywood. And he was the guy, who did What's New Pussycat and all that. But anyway, Casino Royale has this tortured history, unlike the titles.
Right.
And so Charles K. Feldman was sitting on this property doing nothing with it. And then the Eon Productions series got underway in 1962, made by Eon Productions, which was Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were the producers. And they became this huge success. So Charles K. Feldman goes, oh my gosh, I've got a James Bond property. And so that's why we got the 1967 Casino Royale starring Peter Sellers and David Niven and Woody Allen and Orson Welles. And
the definitive James Bond, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, come on.
He had to make it a spoof because
because there had already been several Bond films out by that point.
Yeah, and he couldn't compete with them. So he made it a spoof. But anyway, the rights languished with Columbia Pictures, for decades. And finally, at the end of the 90s, Sony Pictures became the umbrella with MGM, UA, and Columbia. And so that allowed Broccoli and, Barbara Broccoli, who is now, and Michael Wilson, who are now the producers, and MGM, UA, to grab the rights of Casino Royale. And that's why we got the Daniel Craig version.
Love that film.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
Still my favorite of his.
Was David Niven Ian Fleming's first choice to play Bond?
Well, when David Niven was young, in the 40s, he could have done it. And I guess Ian Fleming was thinking of him in that manner because he did say, David Niven would make a good Bond. But that was in the 40s and the 50s.
Right. So before we get to the Connery films, though, was that the 60s Casino Royale, was it a box office disappointment? Was it a...
Yeah.
How did it do? How did people... how did people react to it?
Well, it was, I saw it when it first came out. I was befuddled because, I was too young to know the history behind it.
Right.
It was advertised as a James Bond film, but of course, obviously, it wasn't like the others.
Right.
And, and it wasn't... It was kind of a mess. It had 5 directors.
Yeah.
Didn't everybody
was one of them?
Didn't everybody hate each other too? Everybody.
Is that true? What was the reason? What Peter Sellers and Orson Welles? Is it true that they despise each other to the point where they literally cannot film a scene together? But why was that? What happened?
I really don't know why. They just hated each other.
That's crazy.
Two creative visionaries. Two creative visionaries. You know what I'm talking about, Matt, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's why we do this by Zoom now. Has nothing to do with the pandemic.
And it's not very funny. There's some funny. There's a few.
Today it's like a fascinating oddity.
The best thing about it is the musical score.
Fantastic.
It is awesome.
Yeah, it is great.
Yes. And I actually think that Austin Powers takes more from the 67 Casino Royale than it does from the real James Bond films.
That's true.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very, very wisely.
Yeah.
So
the book, that whole swing in London thing.
And then incredible.
And then Burt Bacharach shows up.
Yeah.
So, can I say one thing about that climax show? One thing that I was kind of shocked by was the level of violence, especially in that third act.
Oh, yeah.
Where Bond is being tortured with pliers. And it's some rough stuff for television.
It's better than what was done in the book, which was what they did in the Daniel Craig film, which was beat him with.
Wow.
I don't.
Couldn't have done that on TV.
No. Maybe with shadows or something.
Even the implication, they couldn't have done it.
No. So to go from that to now we're looking at the films and we're looking at putting together Dr. No.
62, yeah.
Well, there's one piece I need to tell you about.
Please.
Okay.
In the late 50s, late 58 and all through 1959, Fleming worked with a guy named Kevin McClory. Kevin McClory was a producer and a director, and he'd been kicking around Hollywood a long time. He was an assistant director for John Huston, and he worked on Around the World in 80 Days, and he dated Elizabeth Taylor for a while. And they had a mutual friend by the name of Ivor Bryce, and Ivor Bryce was Ian Fleming's closest friend since childhood. And Bryce was very wealthy. And he produced McClory's film that he directed in the late 50s. And McClory was interested in the Bond books to make a movie. And so Bryce got them together. And the three of them together decided to form a partnership to make the first James Bond movie. And McClory wanted to do an original script, not base it on any of the novels. So they all agreed to do that. And another one of their pals, who was an American named Ernest Cuneo, they all got together in early 1959 and they threw ideas around. And Cuneo wrote like a 2-page outline. And it was about, the mafia stealing a couple of atomic bombs and blackmailing Britain and America with them. And that kind of flew from there. Fleming tried his hand at writing a script. Then McClory decided, we need a professional screenwriter. So he brought in a guy named Jack Whittingham. He worked on it. And there were about 10 drafts of the script.
Wow.
First, they called it James Bond of the Secret Service. Then they crossed that out. Then it was called Longitude 78 West. They crossed that out. Finally, on the last script, Fleming crossed out the title and he wrote Thunderball on it.
Oh.
So Thunderball originated as a screenplay, an original screenplay written by, basically, it's credited officially to Ian Fleming, Jack Whittingham, and Kevin McClory. So McClory tries to get this movie made. Failure. Just completely dies. So Fleming goes off and writes I think it's his 11th book in 1961, and it's Thunderball. When it comes out, he wrote it in 1960, and it comes out in 1961. When it comes out, McClory sued him.
No.
Yeah. So it was 2 years before the court case came about. So it was 63. And at the court case, they settled, and McClory got the film rights to Thunderball. Fleming got to keep his novel.
So that's why we have Never Say Never Again, right?
Exactly. Well, if you see Thunderball, the producer is Kevin McClory, not Albert R. Broccoli or Harry Saltzman.
Okay.
Saltzman and Broccoli are the executive producers, although it is an Eon production.
Did McClory actually produce that at all? Or did he just... He did.
Well, they all three produced it. Broccoli, Saltzman, and McClory produced it, but he got the credit.
Okay.
Does McClory get any credit on the novel? Like, is it based on a story or
subsequent editions had to say this novel is based on a screenplay by Kevin McClory, Jack Whittingham, and Ian Fleming.
Okay.
But is it true, Raymond, that all these legal wranglings, ironically at the time when the Bond franchise proper was really taking off, that all these legal woes took a big toll on Fleming?
Well, they did, and he was not well to begin with. I should back up just a bit. Right around the time that McClory was suing him in 1961, that's when Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli got involved. Saltzman had taken out an option on all the existing books that did not include Casino Royale because it had already been sold.
Yeah.
And he found out it didn't include Thunderball because it was under litigation.
Mm-hmm.
But he got the option for all the other. But Saltzman really didn't have the clout to mount a production. Albert R. Broccoli, who was an American based in England, he had been making movies all through the 50s, and they were of a, flashy adventure style kind of B movie, but good,
right.
Flashy. And he was interested in Bond, and he went to look for the option, and he found out this guy Saltzman had him. And so a mutual friend got them together, and they decided to form a partnership. and they formed Eon Productions, and that was in 1961. And they went to United Artists and got a deal in 1 hour. And
wow. So okay, so you said
Dr. No. So they started filming in 1962, January 62.
Man,
opened in October of 62.
Wow. So you said in 1 hour they sold the rights. So does that say then that like even back then the studio and everybody kind of knew that they had quite a hot property on their hands?
Yeah, there was a guy at the studio at United Artists named David Pickard, and he was a fan. He was a fan of the Bond novels. And when Broccoli and Saltzman came in, David Pickard tells the story that he's like, he's kind of bored. He's back in his chair like this. The chair's leaning back against the wall. When Broccoli and Saltzman said, "We have the rights to James Bond," he goes,
wow. I can imagine.
But Raymond, I got a question. One of the biggest things about this film was the casting of Sean Connery, but Sean Connery wasn't a star.
No.
I mean, what was the logic between?
What were they envisioning at the time?
They only got $1 million to make the first movie.
Gosh.
So in 1962, $1 million, you can make a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to afford a big star.
Right.
And you can't make Thunderball either.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
They knew they had to be smart.
Right.
And so, they did talk to a lot of actors. Actually, Cary Grant was a friend of Broccoli's, and they asked Cary Grant, "Would you do it?" And he said, "Well, I'll do one. I'm not going to do a series."
Really?
And so, they wanted somebody that would commit to a series.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked to Roger Moore, but they thought he was too pretty.
Wow.
Oh, no.
And he had not done The Saint yet, right?
He was
just okay. It was just right. Okay.
Yeah. And they talked to Patrick McGowan. He didn't want to do it.
Wow.
They talked to a bunch of people, and finally, it was actually Cubby Broccoli's wife, Dana Broccoli. This is an apocryphal story, but I think it's mostly true. She saw a movie and came home and told Cubby. She said, "You got to see this Scottish actor that's in this movie. I think he'd be a good Bond." And he goes, "What's the movie?" "Darby O'Gill and the Little People." But Sean Connery was a star, and sure enough, they invite him into the office, and when Connery comes in and walks across the room, all the women typists in the room go
stare agape.
They just stare at that.
Wow.
Saltzman goes, "Cubby, look."
We got it.
And they were just impressed with this guy's animal magnetism. He just had charisma coming out the wazoo. And he was very kind of arrogant. He refused to do a screen test.
Really?
No.
Yeah, and they thought that was cool. And they said, "This is the guy. And United Artists at first kind of went, "He's a B movie actor. He's been in a few films. We don't know who he is." And they insisted, "No, we're going to go with this guy."
Wow. And did they have to really kind of get him into, because they didn't, even back then, he wasn't really known to be like the suave kind of gentle guy.
He was a diamond in the rough. He was very working class Scott.
Right.
I mean, he was very working class. And, even Ian Fleming at first kind of went, "Oh no, he's all wrong." But they hired this great director by the name of Terrence Young. And they said, "Terrence, let's spruce him up. Let's take him to a tailor, dress him up, take him out on the town. Let's take him to some of the fancy clubs and the restaurants. And Terrence, show him how to be a sophisticate." It's
like My Fair Lady with James Bond.
Yeah. And actually, Terrence Young and Sean Connery got to be very close. And
really,
Connery, attributes the entire franchise to Terrence Young.
Well, being able to balance that animal magnetism, working class element with the sophisticate, I mean, it's never been done better, in my opinion, than Sean Connery, because it's just like lightning in a bottle. You don't get, it's trying to recast the Beatles, it's like, it's tough.
And you don't realize how good of an actor he was until later. When you started doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Then you went, wow, he was really good as Bond.
Right.
Yeah. That was very different.
That's what comes down to it. He's a good actor, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then watching, and not to jump ahead too much, but like when you watch the Roger Moore films where it's a quipathon, and then you go back to Sean Connery, even at his quippiest, I'd buy it more. It doesn't seem so forced when he's saying it, because of his acting ability. He's able to throw away these lines.
Right.
And it's just, it's a skill that you can't see other people doing.
The lines weren't stupid then either.
Well, that's right.
They degenerated. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything wasn't a giant pun.
And Connery just had a more natural gravity, I think, than Roger Moore. Roger Moore was just lighter.
Yeah,
Connery
he was
just naturally heavier.
Well, we should talk a little bit about who Bond is in the books.
Please.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And because there is a difference. There's a big difference. In the books, Bond is very serious. He's a brooder. He's very melancholy. Mm-hmm. And he's a tough guy. His most outstanding trait is his ability to withstand pain.
Really?
And, that sounds more like Daniel Craig.
Yeah. He's a sensualist because he knows he might die tomorrow.
Sure.
That's why he takes great pleasure in food, smoking,
right.
And women.
Right.
And the movies realized, the producers very cannily realized right up front, we can't put that character on the screen in 1962. It just would not be likable.
Right.
Because he's almost like one of the bad guys in a way. He is a killer. That's his license to kill. He's a killer.
Right.
So they said, we've got to give him a sense of humor. Now, the books themselves had a sense of humor. It was in the writing. It was in the plots. It was in just the way Fleming wrote. There were funny things in it, but Bond himself did not have a sense of humor.
He was very serious all the way through.
But that came later, right? Like in the novels, he started to sprinkle a little more humor
after Fleming saw the first two movies.
After the films, right?
He started making his Bond more like Sean Connery.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
And that was in the last 3 books.
Right.
And so they wanted to keep the Fleming tone and keep it kind of real in those early movies,
right?
But they gave Bond this sort of sophistication. The sophistication was in the books, all about food, locations and things like that. Bond didn't necessarily know the finest wines and that kind of stuff in the books, but they gave that sophistication to him, the character, in the movies.
Right.
Yeah.
So
really nice balance of, especially those early films. It's kind of a nice balance of pure escapist entertainment as well as a little bit of grittiness. It's really a perfect balance.
Right. The books also had, some of them at least, had a kind of a continuity. For example, and you also see Bond aging and being concerned about how he's slowing down a little bit. But for example, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, ending the way that it does with Blofeld, gunning down his wife. And the very next book Fleming wrote was You Only Live Twice, where Bond is, looking for Blofeld for revenge. But the films weren't produced in that order, so things got a little bit.
That's one thing about the films the fans are. Right. I don't know how old you guys are, but I was there in the early '60s. Like they said, I saw Goldfinger, the third film, on the big screen with my father. But right after that, they re-released the first 2 films. Double bill. So within 6 months, I saw the first 3 films on the big screen.
Wow.
So, and I was 9.
Wow. Jeez. Wow.
And then within a year, Thunderball came out. And by the way, they had done the first 3 films, and by then that court case was settled, and Broccoli and Saltzman decided, we can't let Kevin McClory go make his own Bond film, so they brought him in. They went and said, Mr. McClory, come produce the 4th Bond film with us. You get full producer credit. We've got Sean Connery. We've got the big snowball that's getting bigger and bigger. And McClory said, you bet. I'm there.
So was those first 4 especially, was it really a build? Because I know when Dr. No hit, it hit like gangbusters. And From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger, a lot of people seem to say that Goldfinger was the one that just kind of focused it all so perfectly.
It all came together perfectly.
Like it made everybody realize this franchise is pure gold. Right?
Yeah. Well, the first 2, they're still finding their way.
Right.
I personally, the first 2 are my favorites. Because they're raw and they feel more like Fleming's books. I'm kind of a purist, I'll admit it, with the books. And I just think they did more with less. And the plots are great, the acting's great, the stories are great.
Great villains.
Yeah.
Robert Shaw, come on.
Robert Shaw is just brutal.
Then with the third film, Goldfinger, the budget got higher and they started putting more fantasy elements into it. And a little more humor as well.
Right.
And Goldfinger just took off. That's the one that just completely went through.
Like just everybody was talking about it. It was like everywhere.
It was a phenomenon. It was the Star Wars of the 60s.
Right.
Great example there. Yeah.
Did in the novels, was gadgetry as big of a thing as it was in the films?
No, but he did have gadgets. I mean, there is that briefcase in From Russia with Love, the novel. It's not as souped up as the one in the film, but there are some things in it, like the knife that comes out.
Okay.
The Aston Martin. There is an Aston Martin in the book of Goldfinger. It doesn't have machine guns or an ejector seat or anything, but it does. It does have I believe he had the homing signal in it, and You
got to buy that car loaded, to get all that.
Q is not in the movie Dr. No, right?
He is. He's played by a different actor. He's played by a different actor.
So Desmond Llewellyn doesn't show up until the next one.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, he's called the Armorer in Dr.
Okay,
No.
that's right. Okay.
And he's actually called that in From Russia with Love too. They didn't start calling him Q until I think Goldfinger.
Okay.
Does Ian Fleming have a cameo, Raymond, in From Russia with Love?
No, that's a myth. That's a myth.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Huh, really?
Because I read somewhere that he was standing at a train station. I watched the Blu-ray and well, now we know. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're only here to help.
Yeah.
Fans.
I was just gonna say, I went nuts with Bond. That just became my obsession, at this very young age. And I started reading the books at that time too. They might have been a little over my head, but I got the plots and the stories.
Right.
Of course, I reread them over the years. I got the toy, the action figure.
Oh,
yeah, of course.
It really captured the whole merchandising thing too.
Yeah, really, a really early example of like all-out merchandising for a franchise.
And did it fairly well. Like when you think about the stuff that came out, especially the toys, they were glorious. I mean,
I had a lot of them.
Yeah.
Wait, the best one I think is the battery operated car. The Aston Martin that shoots little machine guns.
Sure.
Did you have that, Raymond?
I did not have that one. But really the crown jewel was the attaché case. And it was pretty faithful to the movie too. And it was awesome. And I wasn't able to get that. But I did have, a lot of the action figures. I had the jigsaw puzzles and the board games.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the late 60s, this whole pop culture phenomenon, I mean, is it safe to say you wouldn't think, TV shows like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. or Get Smart and all that just wouldn't probably exist if it wasn't for
Bond certainly influenced all that. The success of Bond caused in the mid 60s what I call this spy boom in pop culture. Suddenly spies were everywhere.
Sure.
TV, imitation movies,
Mad Helm.
Fashion. You'd look at fashion magazines. There's always some guy looking like Bond, with a girl,
cartoons. James Hound.
Or Secret Squirrel.
The Beverly Hillbillies had an episode where
that's right.
Becomes Hot 7.
Hot 7, right.
That's great. Cool McCool.
But we got the Man from U.N.C.L.E. Spy and the Avengers and Get Smart.
I mean, it's it's crazy. It really is amazing how it influenced pop culture in general.
Well, I maintain that Goldfinger was the most influential film of the 60s in terms of pop culture.
I think absolutely. Yeah.
And the funny thing about Goldfinger is that upon watching it again recently, it's one of those films where if you really kind of look at the story, I'm not sure how the film compares to the novel, but the most critical thing that Bond does in that story is that he turns Pussy Galore's loyalty, because that's what wins the whole thing for him.
Yeah,
Other than that, he doesn't do a whole lot that's that instrumental.
Except be really cool.
And in 1964, that was okay to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Not so sure right now.
And that's the other thing too, is that I guess, back then I'm sure these films were embraced by male and female, even though they're primarily a male fantasy.
Yeah, but women liked them too. They wanted to be those Bond girls because they were independent.
Right.
They traveled the world. They were rich.
Beautiful.
They had handsome boyfriends, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
But and sometimes they got to kill guys. So, you know.
Right.
What's the whole thing about the double entendre names? I've never met a gal named like Pussy Galore or Honey Rider or, you know, what's that all
movies
about?
took that in a whole different direction.
Yeah,
Fleming only did it a couple of times. I mean, he did name Pussy Galore. That was a Fleming name.
Was
he
Goodhead?
Rarely had any others. What?
Was Goodhead? Was that Fleming?
That was a movie. Okay,
because that's just absurd.
It is.
That's where I draw the line, frankly.
So was the movie.
Yes.
Who was that one Bond girl? Tina, please have sex with me. She was really good.
Yeah. Wow.
This has been a success. It's been a success, and it's riding this wave. And then Sean Connery decides, I'm done.
Well, because I know it's like you had every year, you have Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, year one after another, 62, 63, 64, 65. Then there was that gap. Not until 67 do we get You Only Live Twice. No, was it by that time, like after Thunderball, Connery was done or thought he would be done? He was fighting with the producers. He wanted more money. He actually wanted to be a partner. They wouldn't increase his salary very much. I mean, they would create, he wanted percentage of the box office and all this. And I mean, which he deserved. He deserved it. I think so. I mean,
absolutely.
And United Artists thought he deserved it too.
Right.
But, and also the whole invasion of privacy thing took him by surprise.
Okay.
And, in the 1960s, that was kind of a new thing, the paparazzi. That was a term coined in the 1960s. And by the time of You Only Live Twice, he was followed by journalists everywhere, and it drove him nuts. He was even followed into the bathroom. And that's when he just lost it. He just said, I'm done. This is
was that a troubled production though too, also, other than Connery?
Thunderball?
Not really. I mean,
You Only Live Twice.
You Only Live Twice. Okay.
A stuntman died, but other than that, it was. I mean, it was in many ways they're all troubled productions.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I knew we glossed over a little bit Thunderball, the actual film, and one of the things that I really love about that, the underwater scene is still to this day, I think, one of the most breathtaking underwater fight scenes I've ever seen.
It's just like they're really doing it. It's like
see that on a big screen or certainly on Blu-ray, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was innovative at the time. They were using new kinds of cameras that they could get down there, and it did win an Oscar for visual effects.
Yeah, it's incredible. Right. And so, like, what you lack in the grounded grittiness of the early films, now it's a different thrill. It's the big set pieces, the big spectacle battles.
That's when they kind of got into making each one bigger and better.
That's why, by the time you get to You Only Live Twice, it's like this giant volcano set.
I do love it. It's just incredible. I do love that.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. I love it too. I think You Only Live Twice is the sort of the pinnacle of the 1960s Bond fever.
Yeah. I love that movie. Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of outrageous, but they take it seriously. I mean, they're not. Yeah. It's not goofy like Moonraker, say.
Right.
It's still a Sean Connery Bond film. It's just got outer space in it, and
right.
Some outrageous stuff, but it's still gorgeous.
And I assume it was a big hit.
And it's got John Barry's music. We can't forget.
Gorgeous
music.
The music was so important to all
actually, that's my favorite single moment in any Bond film is in the fight scene in You Only Live Twice on the Kobe dock, where they're in the middle of the fight. But there's a crane. There's like a crane shot, and suddenly they cut away from the action. The music is awesome right at that moment, and it's like it goes against expectation because normally in a fight scene you'd be in the middle of it, but this is just they take this panoramic view, and plus it's in Japan, so it's just a win-win.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Japan, one of my favorite assassin moments is the death of Aki.
Yeah.
And that's to me, I thought that the first time I saw that film, it was so clever to kill someone by lowering a string and having poison go down the string to land in someone's mouth as they're sleeping. And then have it go wrong because Bond and Aki, kind of readjust themselves in bed and she gets the poison. I mean, that's just so good. And so Matt, like from the bigger moments to the smaller moments, it just works.
And Matt, that's probably the closest, that movie is probably the closest thing you'll come to a Godzilla Bond merging because you have Akiko Wakabayashi and Mihama, two starlets from the Toho Godzilla films in there.
Yeah. Well, but Mihama was also at one point married to the head of Toho Studios.
Really?
And I just wanted to add in Thunderball, we had mentioned the underwater sequences. People forget that the underwater sequences were directed by Riku Browning, who played the underwater creature from the Black Lagoon. So, nice. I mean, Riku went on to have an amazing career directing, Salty the Seal, Flipper, and that kind of stuff, but he did direct the underwater sequences of Thunderball.
That's right.
There is a great underwater battle scene in Flipper that I remember.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So, Connery decides, I'm out. And so they knew they had to recast it.
Was it panicking? Were people panicking? I mean,
Well, they were concerned, but they decided to make a publicity event out of it and cast an unknown.
Right.
And Life magazine had a big spread of all the actors that were auditioning for it and everything, and they settled on George Lazenby because he gave a great screen test. He looked good. His fight scenes were really good in the screen test. In fact, he broke the other guy's nose.
You've got the part.
Yeah, that's what happened. Someone said, "We're going with you." And but he'd never acted before.
Right.
And,
really?
Was there why? So I'm curious as to they're taking a chance with the new actor playing Bond. At the same time, the movie they're putting him in is not a typical James Bond movie in so many ways. Like it's kind of two risks in a way. Like have James Bond fall in love and have a wife, have him show an emotional side, and do it with an unknown actor. I mean, that was kind of
never acted before.
I know it was a big risk, and also the Peter Hunt, who directed it, was the editor of the first 5 films.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved the book, and he said, we're going to make this faithful to the book and have her die at the end. It's going to be a downer ending.
Right.
So that was another strike against it.
But it's so good. I mean, how was that? Was that accepted when it came out? I
didn't think it did well.
It did not do well at the time. General audiences didn't like him, and they didn't like the movie much, and it kind of got shuffled under the rug by Ian.
Like this never happened, kind of a thing.
Really? For like a decade or more.
Right.
But its reputation grew. The Bond fans, people who like me, who read the books, who followed it, who were really hardcore, we loved it from the minute it came out.
Right.
Really?
I think Lazenby is fine. I don't think he may not be the best Bond, but he is a solid Bond, and he's in a movie that's great.
He's solid. Yeah. He's very solid in it, and I think he would have grown into the role if he'd done more.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of the best. I know Bond fans who think it's the number 1 Bond film.
And he was wasn't Lazenby a pain in the ass though?
Yes, I was about to ask. Did he kind of shoot himself in the foot with this role, post production?
Yep. See, he did. He had an agent. He had an agent that advised him not to do anymore.
Really?
This was 1969, and he said, the agent told him the future of movies is Easy Rider and all this hippie stuff, and James Bond is going to be blasé.
So then, if his agent didn't say that, would they have offered him? Do you think more films?
That's questionable.
Yeah. Okay.
We get different stories from different people. I know George very well, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Does he look back and go, I should have?
Well, he doesn't regret anything, but he certainly plays on his role now, even today.
Sure.
He makes appearances and
I got his autograph at a convention. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
He's also refreshingly candid in interviews. He's like, God, I got laid all the time, like 5 to 6 times a day.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, after that, United Artists said, "Look, you got to get Sean Connery back."
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they, even though Broccoli and Saltzman didn't really want Connery back.
Really?
Yeah. And United Artists insisted. And so they offered Connery the highest salary ever offered to an actor at the time.
Wow.
Wow.
And so Connery said, "Oh, okay, I'll donate this to this Scottish charity that I'm fond of.
Oh, wow.
I'll do one more." And
See, that's the thing is, I always say that, like, people say how the Roger Moore films were very quippy and didn't take themselves seriously. To me, always thought the Diamonds Are Forever is a Roger Moore Bond, just happens to have Sean Connery in it.
Yeah.
It's the beginning. It's the beginning of all the really kind of cheesy quips and all the, and it's pure parody sometimes. I love it, but it's a very different vibe.
For some reason, the change of the decade into the 70s, that happened.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not sure exactly why, but from what I'm told and what people say is that they felt that spies were becoming comical because we'd had them all through the 60s.
Well, yeah, you had Matt Helm and Derek Flint and all these other guys.
And so it was more about poking fun at themselves.
Right.
Well, you have this moment after the elevator fight where Tiffany Case opens up the wallet and looks at the Playboy Club card and says, "You just killed James Bond." Yeah. As if James Bond was already a household name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What kind of a good secret agent?
Right.
Yeah, the whole thing is looking at it as making fun of the whole franchise.
It is. It's like a lark. Really.
Also, Connery doesn't look too healthy to me. When I watch that movie,
he's a little heavier, but I think he actually plays the role very well in that movie.
He does.
He's having a good time.
He does.
Yes, he is. He's being.
It's a little shocking to go from, if you're going to go strictly Connery, if you go from You Only Live Twice to that, it seems like, wow, some years have gone by.
Yeah.
And look, if that were me in the role, it'd be like, oh my God, are you okay?
And now, that was supposed to be his last time, but late in the 70s, Kevin McClory, he had the rights to Thunderball, and in his contract when he did the original Thunderball, after 10 years he was allowed to try to remake it.
Right.
And at the time, I guess Broccoli and Saltzman thought, well, in 10 years this will all be over.
Right.
So he tried in the late 70s. In fact, he got Connery involved in helping with the script.
Wow.
At first it was called Warhead, and Cubby Broccoli was on his own now. Saltzman had left the franchise in the mid-70s. And Broccoli was throwing all kinds of legal obstacles in McClory's way. But finally, in 1982, he got Jack Schwartzman involved, who was Talia Shire's husband, a big lawyer, producer. And they got it done. And they made Never Say Never Again, which was a remake of Thunderball, made by a different production company.
Yeah.
And they got Connery to star in it. And I think Connery was trying to stick it to Broccoli.
But also at that time,
I actually like it. I think it's a good movie.
I like the movie, but I just don't feel like it's a James Bond movie. That's the problem.
Well, it is a James Bond movie. It's. I mean, if the Eon movies didn't exist and that was the only Bond movie, that's a Bond movie.
And wasn't this the first time that there were two Bond films coming out at the same time?
Right.
And I got to admit, at the time we had a lot of Roger Moore films. And I was very happy to see Connery back.
Right.
And they took it, for the most part, it was serious.
They do kind of play and they play on his old age a little bit. And that,
but I think he looks healthier in this one than he does.
He did.
In Diamonds Are Forever. And one of the things I really enjoy is, after seeing all those Roger Moore movies, to have Connery back and seeing him fight. Like, one of the things I always enjoyed about Connery's performance is when he was fighting someone, it really seemed like he was fighting.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
you can believe Connery could kill somebody.
Right. Whereas Roger Moore was hitting someone. It wasn't really.
Well, looking back at Never Say Never Again, it's not a great movie. But
it's kind of
okay.
But it's fun though.
But
there's a great fight scene in that. There's that fight scene in the gym is lovely.
You also have, for me, the best performance of a Bond villain in Klaus Maria Brandauer.
He is right.
Barbara Carrera.
And Fatima Blush. Yeah, but you need the music. You don't have the music.
That's the thing.
I miss the music.
And I don't like the music in that film.
No, the visual style.
Yeah.
And what was the Roger Moore film that came out at the same time? Was that
Octopussy?
Octopussy. And the funny thing, Raymond, is when Octopussy came out, I happened to be working at a movie theater that was showing Octopussy, and I knew it, backwards and forwards. That song, "That's an all-time high." I loved that. And actually, I thought Roger Moore was very suave and sophisticated, and Matt pokes fun at Sean.
I still like him.
I do too.
But Roger Moore, but Roger Moore. The great thing about him is he could hit you with the tip of his neck, and he gets the right spot. Whereas
very Vincent Price and his
Sean Connery was more like shots. Ogre, like
he was the brawler.
That scene in Never Say Never Again when they're fighting in the gym with the hitman, it goes on for a while. Seems like a real fight. Like I missed that kind of fighting in a Bond movie.
Right.
And I think that if you took that movie and you just put new music over it, you'd like it a lot better.
Yeah. Well, the music was very, very. They picked Michel Legrand, who's this French composer, and just not the right choice. It's like for me, Eric Serra wasn't the right choice for
because so much of it is the tone. You got to have the right tone in these films.
You're right.
That's right. Yep.
In my opinion, look, I like Roger Moore. I think he was a great guy. There's a lot about those 70s movies that really make me cringe.
There are elements. I still like them a lot, though. But did Diamonds Are
case
Forever?
by case. Case by case, I think, really.
But did Diamonds Are Forever do well still?
Yes.
And so did they try to get Connery back?
Well, sure, they asked, but he wouldn't do it. So then they thought, well, we're going to go with a known entity this time.
Instead of and he had just finished. So he was done with The Saint by now. Roger Moore. Mm-hmm. He had done some films.
He did that TV series with Tony Curtis.
Yeah, The Persuaders.
Which is a great TV series.
He's also really good in The Man Who Haunted Himself, which is a really good thriller. But so audiences, it was easier for audiences to accept Roger Moore.
Yeah, but also by then you had a whole new generation of people discovering them.
Right.
And the Bond films of the 60s were action thrillers. The Bond films of the 70s were action comedies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep.
Also, Live and Let Die, to me, they're taking advantage of the whole blaxploitation thing that was going on for sure. And
then the next one was taking advantage of the martial arts films.
Right.
With the Golden Gun. Right.
But Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die.
Got to talk about that.
That was my first Bond. That was the one that I saw in the theater as a kid. And I loved it. And I love it to this day also because we're all horror fans. And I love the voodoo element in that, which I thought was genuinely spooky.
Yeah, now, actual supernatural
when you revisit it now, not quite so much.
But still, at that time, and how else can we make this really hip? You get this new band called Wings. Paul McCartney
called Wings.
Who
are these kids?
This is great music.
It does have a different. You're right, though. The '70s films is a different vibe. It's a different decade, and they really have their own. If like none of the Connery films ever existed, and we had just Roger Moore, we'd say, okay, Roger Moore's James Bond.
I do love the cast. I love Yaphet Kotto and Jane Seymour is
one of my
gorgeous.
favorite Bond girls. Yeah.
Well, and it's also really fortunate, I think, that movie was made right at that time during the blaxploitation period.
It was the only time it could be made.
It was.
I think that's true. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
No, let's not bring that one back.
Now, I had heard though the next one, Man with the Golden Gun, to me, I always thought to not portray Bond in a good light. Like he's kind of like he messes up, he screws up. Like
it's kind of dull.
Well, it's not. I think it has my
Christopher Lee.
There's moments that are great. Like every Bond movie, there are moments that are wonderful.
Is underused in that film.
Me too. I think he's one of the best Bond villains.
There's no menace, and when Bond and Scaramanga get together, they treat each other like gentlemen.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I rank Golden Gun way down at the bottom.
Now, didn't that one not do as well either? I heard.
No, it didn't do very well.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing that I can't understand about that movie is that you've got the fun house of death in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then for the third act, you just do it all over again. I mean, it's almost beat for beat. And so how is that a satisfying climax? Yeah. And then Britt Eklund is, sorry, but look, sorry, Britt.
But it kind of bounced back with Spy Who Loved Me. And Broccoli is on his own now, and he brought in his son-in-law Michael Wilson to be co-producer, and they kind of got it more tailored to Roger Moore's strengths.
Yeah, the balance was good because there was still comedy and still light, but not like, to me, the worst moment in Man with the Golden Gun is when that car jumps over the bridge and does the loop and lands.
The corkscrew.
And you have the whistle, the cartoon slide whistle. Slide whistle.
Yeah, terrible.
No, but for years and years until I watched the Blu-ray set, I didn't realize. I always thought that was a special effect. I thought it was like a Derek Mettings miniature, when I found out that it was an actual fucking stuntman doing that, and then they just cheapened it by adding the slide whistle. It was like, holy shit!
How dare you?
I was like, that was the worst to me. But you're right. Spy Who Loved Me kind of got the balance just right for.
And bringing the sheriff back, that horrible sheriff.
One of the good things about the '70s films, the Roger Moore era, is the stunts. They really concentrated on real stunts.
Right.
And For Your Eyes Only is my favorite of the Roger Moore Bond films.
Great song, Sheena Easton.
But also, that's a more grounded, realistic Bond after Moonraker.
After Moonraker, they said, we got to get more back into Fleming. We got to ground it more, be more serious. Right. And it was more of a movie, kind of like, in the From Russia with Love vein.
Yeah.
It still had humor in it. Still had some goofy stuff in it, but it was mostly taken seriously. And Roger Moore even had to kill somebody in cold blood in it.
That's right. That's right. He pushes the car off the thing. Yeah. But now, was Moonraker, although it may have not been critically well received, it still was a big hit, right? This was Star Wars fever. It was James Bond in space.
And look, for everyone to criticize Moonraker, it's
we will.
Come on, it's. I still think it's kind of neat. I still
enjoy it, and
it's total jumping the shark. No way.
It has fantastic special effects. It has fantastic effects.
It's got great production values. It's got great, beautiful locations.
Yes.
That space station is awesome.
And that whole sequence on the gondolas too. I thought that was really cool.
The humor is just inexcusable.
You're right. It's a cartoon.
Yes. Sophomoric.
Yes.
And the product placement's a little too obvious too.
Yeah. Yes, that is true. But we did get him before, but that made a great action figure, a 12-inch action figure of Jaws.
Then that saves the movie.
Well, that you can use to open like a bottle of Coke.
You would never do that with your Jaws figure.
No, I wouldn't. But if I ever wanted to, I could.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I remember walking out of that one. I love The Spy Who Loved Me so much. And then to have it followed up with that and have Jaws back. And it's like, okay, wow, he's back. And then now he's on their side. And I always hate it when that happens, when the villain that you love to hate. Puts his side, and now he's the good guy. Like,
he's just a pussycat now. Yeah.
Well, look, he had an epiphany, okay? He had a moment.
Have it in another movie.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's almost like Moonraker is more for kids in a way, too. It's like for a younger audience.
And maybe that's why I liked it, because, at that time, Raymond, I wanted space anything, and it's like Star Wars. Oh, my gosh. Anything that had space, I was a sucker.
Well, that's why they did it.
That's why they did it. And they got my money.
Isn't it true that, I don't know if they fixed it, but wasn't it at the end of Spy Who Loved Me, it says James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only. But then Star Wars hit. It's like, holy shit, wait, let's make Moonraker first.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you about, For Your Eyes Only. It came out in 1981.
Right.
And it was a little different. I saw it and I kind of got excited again. I kind of, all through the 70s, I went to see all the Bond films, like, Very Loyal and, and then For Your Eyes Only, I kind of went, wow. This is kind of like the old films.
Right.
And then also that same year, John Gardner's first novel came out, License to Nude. So I kind of got a 1-2 punch to get me back into James Bond. And that's when I started researching and doing the James Bond bedtime.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
As a result of For Your Eyes Only.
Wow.
Yeah, that is that's a very good film. Yeah.
Did you interview Sheena Easton by any chance?
I never got to interview her.
That's my one problem with the film.
What?
I love
the song?
Well, it's not.
Are you insane?
I personally, it's not my favorite of the Bond dudes. But one of the things that I did not like is her face all over the credits.
That's the first time
you're right.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
I did not care for that.
I agree with you.
I wanted
agree.
to lick that. I wanted to run up to the screen and kiss it.
I would have liked to have seen that.
I mean, she was attractive, and they were, they always put attractive women up there. So
Yes, they
why not?
do.
Plus, it was
I mean,
the
she
MTV
looks like a Bond girl, that's for sure.
Stylistic choice, it's fine, it's,
Yeah.
and it was the MTV era. So,
True, that's true, yes.
But
It was so MTV.
Speaking
now,
of songs,
by Octopussy and View to a Kill, I thought Roger was getting a little old for the roles.
Well,
especially View to a Kill. Like Octopussy to me is like a weird kind of almost, it's stuck in between For Your Eyes Only and Moonraker as far as the style. Like it's because like Moonraker's cartoonish, For Your Eyes Only is really grounded, and Octopussy's right there, kind of uncomfortably in the middle. But it still has a lot of cool stuff in it that I enjoy, and I like Louis Strudon as a great villain. I still like that one.
It's educational. You learn about the eggs,
Fabergé eggs.
eggs.
Yeah, sure.
Isn't
I learned all about that stuff.
And that's the one that
kids love them.
Didn't Octopussy actually end up doing better than Never Say Never Again, which was released the same year, right?
They both did well, but Octopussy made more money.
Okay.
I remember the cover of a Starlog magazine, and it had a picture of Sean Connery as Bond and Roger Moore as Bond. It's like the battling Bonds. And I remember thinking to myself, I thought Sean Connery looked a little older. I thought
no doubt.
Roger Moore looked better.
Roger Moore is older than Connery. He was older than Connery.
Yeah.
By 3 years.
Maybe
it's the weight, I think, too.
Yeah.
Looking at Connery and Never Say Never Again, and looking at Roger Moore and Octopussy, I think Connery looks younger.
Yeah. I think you might be right. Yeah. So by the time you get to 1985 with A View to a Kill, I agree. I mean, look, Roger Moore was always a super good-looking, handsome guy who always looked younger than he was, I thought. But still, by the time you get to View to a Kill and he's jumping around on the Golden Gate Bridge and hanging from a blimp, it's like, no.
Every time he's doing something like that, I'm like, no, don't do that. No.
Yeah.
Don't jump on that.
He really shows his age in that one. And that is the one where I still enjoy that movie because of the cast and there's some great stuff, but like he's getting a little tired.
It's a parody now. Once again, now we're back in parody.
Yeah, but I love seeing him with Patrick McNee, and
there's always great stuff in the movies.
Yeah.
No matter how weak a Bond film is, there's always good stuff, fun stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still, I own them all on Blu-ray. I'll still watch every single one.
Me too. Yeah. And actually, View to a Kill has one of my favorite soundtracks too.
Yeah. It's a great score.
It's a great score.
So, Roger finally decides, okay, I'm too old to play this. And he says, I'm stepping down. And Michael Wilson and Cubby Broccoli decided, we've done Moonraker, we've done A View to a Kill, we've done all this comedy with Roger Moore. Why don't we go back to Ian Fleming and do some serious spy stuff now? And let's try to be more faithful to the Bond of the books.
Right.
Now, first, they tried to get Pierce Brosnan. But he was doing Remington Steele.
Yes, on TV.
They at the last minute, Remington Steele renewed his contract and he couldn't get out.
Oh.
So they cast Timothy Dalton, who was a Shakespearean actor. And Dalton said, I love the Fleming books and I'm not going to do it unless I can play that guy. And they said, that's what we want.
Wow.
So Dalton, read all the books again, and that's why we get a fairly serious Bond,
right?
That is more of a brooder.
Yes.
And I actually, Connery will always be my favorite Bond, but I will say right now that the most accurate to the novels is Timothy Dalton.
Really?
I think he's great. I think he's.
I do too. Yeah, I really like his two movies a lot.
Yes, I only been in two.
My only problem rewatching them was I feel like sometimes there's a pace that's a little clunky, and I think maybe because they're trying to go back to a less kinetic style, maybe that's the reason.
Well, they're trying to tell more of a complicated story, maybe.
Yeah, and it was the same.
The plots are more intricate. Yeah.
It's the same director. It's John Glenn, who had done For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill. I mean, he had done.
Yeah, he did all of the ones in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Living Daylights is kind of more like, the earlier stuff, but with License to Kill, they really took a departure. They tried to do with Timothy Dalton then in 1989 what they did with Daniel Craig in 2006. And that was to make an edgy, realistic,
revenge-driven,
almost R-rated James Bond, like the books.
Yeah.
In fact, if you read the novel Live and Let Die, it's got the tone and the feel and scenes in License to Kill. I'm a big supporter of License to Kill.
Me too.
It's one of the best Bond films.
Yeah, me too. I like it a lot.
It's great.
It's Bond going rogue.
Great.
That's what really makes me sad that he only got 2 films, is that I feel like he's really getting comfortable with the role. They're adding little moments of humor that are just organic humor. It's not quips. And I really feel like this character is just solid. And I'm so sad that we didn't get more of that.
Right.
Did License to Kill
did not do well?
Okay.
It did not do well in the United States, especially. It did okay overseas. I mean, it made money. It did fine, but it probably made the least amount of money than any Bond film since Dr. No.
Wow. So did Dalton not want to come back, or did they ask him back?
He was set to come back, and they were planning a third. They were writing a couple of scripts actually for him, and he was going to do a third film, but MGMUA got into some lawsuits. And there was all this
Kerkorian. Yes, Kerkorian.
Yeah, there was this big problem, and Broccoli decided we're not going to make a film until MGM puts its house in order.
Mm-hmm. Wow, because that was the longest between License to Kill and GoldenEye. Isn't that the longest gap between
years? Okay, except now it's
right. Right, sure, exactly.
Yeah.
But so that's why, and so during that interim 6 years, Dalton kind of got onto other things.
Right.
They figured that after 6 years, they couldn't bring Dalton back. They should probably just start over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they did. And they got Pierce Brosnan. And so that reboot with GoldenEye in 1995 was hugely successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're being pretty big.
By now, Barbara Broccoli is co-producer with her stepbrother, Michael.
Right.
Brosnan. And the 4 Brosnan films were very successful. I call them the video game Bonds.
Yeah, I like GoldenEye a lot.
Theater, you might as well have a controller because you're action.
Right.
GoldenEye. I like the story of GoldenEye, but Tomorrow Never Dies. I always thought that's the one that Jonathan Pryce is like he's like the media magnate or whatever. That one just gets silly to me. He's like trying to take over the world with TV or something. Or
that's my favorite of the 4.
Really?
No.
Absolutely.
I love
Michelle Yeoh is a great.
She's awesome.
I love Michelle Yeoh. I love Jonathan Pryce.
I do too.
I think it's interesting to go at a Bond villain, the view of like being someone who controls media of all things.
I like the
idea. And we know, obviously in this day and age, how important that is to world events.
Yeah, I just thought he wasn't that menacing though to me. It was just, I don't know.
Well, he was doing some pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah, I had to revisit that one because it didn't have much.
I liked GoldenEye, but I thought the score let it down.
Yeah.
But the score by David Arnold in Tomorrow Never Dies was very much more like John Barry. And I think that elevated it. And and that was also the first one I novelized.
So, wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. We'll have to go back and talk about my Bond stuff.
Yes, we will.
Of course.
Yes, we will.
We'll finish talking about the movies.
Yes.
So World is Not Enough is the third one that comes up, right? So that one I did like too. But I don't know, it didn't have much of an impression on me as much as GoldenEye though.
Yeah. The second two, I like them, but they're not as good as the first two, I don't think.
Which one's the invisible car? That's where
Die Another Day. Die Another Day. When I watched it again, I enjoyed it more this time because my expectations weren't in any strange place, and I just accepted the action and the nonsense. People make fun of the invisible car all the time, and to me, I'm like, okay, well, look, we've already gone this far in Crazy Gadgets and Bond. Why not an invisible car?
Right?
Why not?
And the Brosnan films did introduce Judi Dench as M, which is pretty cool.
She was very good.
Yeah.
And then asking the question, okay, the Cold War's over. How do you fit in now? That's the through line of all the Brosnan movies.
That's true. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And then, like I'd mentioned before, at the end of the 90s, they got the rights to Casino Royale. And so Barbara and Michael, they're sitting on the origin story of James Bond, they said, we can't do that with Pierce. We have to, if we're going to do it, we got to reboot and cast it again and just kind of start all over. So they said, that's what we're going to do. And, you know, they cast Daniel Craig and really kind of started a new series. It has occasional nudge, wink, winks to the old stuff.
Right.
Because they'll bring back like a prop or a gadget or the Aston Martin or whatever. And of course, Judi Dench continues, which makes no sense. But,
that's true. You're right. That's right. You think about that.
She was kept alive by a gadget.
But again, by 2006, we'd had the Bourne movies.
Yes.
Very successful. And so they thought, okay, now we can go edgy and dark and make Bond like the character in the book and make him violent. And he's playing Fleming's Bond.
See, I love Daniel Craig because to me, James and I have always had this discussion. Like, what I love is in the world of spies, you know, where you have to be really tough and brutal and sneaky or whatever. To me, Daniel Craig really has that.
Yeah, I mean, he does. You know, he doesn't look like James Bond. All the other Bonds look like Bond.
Yes.
The way he's described.
Yes.
Daniel Craig doesn't. And, you know,
I agree.
So that's why I say Timothy Dalton is the most accurate, you know, but Dalton is playing the dramatic action. He's playing the subtext. So,
but Daniel Craig is the
a good
brutal.
Bond.
But Daniel Craig is the brutal guy. I mean, he is a brutal Bond. And to me, he just seems more realistic.
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah. How did they come upon casting him? Like, was it quite a...
I think Barbara Barbara was a fan of his. She knew him or she, you know, liked his work and just thought he would be good. You know, Barbara was behind that. So now, you know, he's done 4 very, very successful films. Skyfall especially was hugely successal.
I'm not a Craig fan. As much as I'm a Bond fan, I was one of those, you know, bitter pills when Casino Royale came out.
Yes, you were.
And I had to really think about why. You know, was I suddenly, you know, Kathy Bates with the mallet, you know, and was I really that invested? Well, my take on it was, after thinking about it, was that what I enjoyed about the series, every movie in the series, no matter who played him, was that I was able to step vicariously into that character. Somehow I was invited to step vicariously into that character, and I was able to have some measure of fun with doing that. With Daniel Craig, there's something about his persona as an actor, his stature, his face, his expression. Now, I don't deny that these are probably the best, as far as action, compelling, convincing action sequences, the best in the series, hands down. But as far as an avatar for my role-playing fantasy, Daniel Craig loses because he's a monolith. I don't want to be him. I don't want to meet him.
Well, once the torture scene is over, I think I'm done wanting to be James Bond. I'll just
that is a
live
great
vicariously.
Look, that is a great torture scene.
It's the greatest.
When I'm watching it, and for listeners, if you haven't seen this movie, you know, first of all, to have James Bond, you're stripped naked, and they put you in a chair. They dig a little hole in the chair. And you go, what the hell are they doing? I'm trying to figure out what. When I first saw it, I'm like, what are they? I don't get it. What he's gonna like?
I knew it. Hole in the chair. Once you got hole in the chair, I know what's coming.
And then you know the villain has this rope, and there's this weight as he's swinging it and flings it right under, hitting Bond's little gentleman
love tackle.
Yes, the taint area, if you will. And
it's no good.
It is a tough scene to watch.
Well, it's right out of the novel, although it was a carpet beater in the novel.
Raymond, check this out. Raymond, it was on television not too long ago. I forget what channel I was watching, and the scene was edited. They cut out a chunk of that scene.
Can't do that.
I'm just telling you.
I'm just saying it's wrong. That's all.
I love Casino Royale.
I do too.
Top 5 in my top 5, and
like you said, it's really more to the source novel of the character.
Right.
You know,
the next 3, I like. All right. The second one, not so much, but the third.
Yeah, Quantum of Solace.
All right.
I like
Skyfall. I like Skyfall.
Yeah, Skyfall is interesting that they go that way to like where he kind of fails in his mission to a point, and it goes.
Well,
I mean, and that way, it's kind of echoes a bit what they did with on Her Majesty's Secret Service. They do a little bit of a human,
but
foible, situation going on.
But what I love about it,
but
what I love about it is, for listeners, if you're not familiar with it, imagine, if you will, you're like this great shape. You're this top spy, and right at the beginning, you get hit with a bullet, and you fall this huge distance, and you think you're almost dead, and you got to recover, and maybe you're not as sharp right now, maybe you're not in the best physical shape, and there's this whole thing there about aging. And look, this is kind of a young man's game. I don't know how long I could stay at this.
Right.
And that was an aspect of the film that I loved, because as I'm getting older here, maybe I'm not as quick as I used to be.
Can't take a bullet like you used to. I get you.
You can't sit in a chair with a hole in it the same way as you used to.
Oh man, the summers that I would spend with my chair.
I'm just saying that I love the whole thing about the mortality and getting a little older, and I love that aspect, which hasn't been used.
And I always thought Spectre, the next film too, was a little bit more nostalgic too. That's where they go back. They echo back to the car and and it's kind of. I kind of like that one too.
Blofeld.
Yeah, and Blofeld, which I think is, I believe.
You know what? I don't think they've ever successfully cast a Blofeld.
Really?
I actually think, in a way, I think Donald Pleasance is my favorite Blofeld, though.
Well, he might be mine, but he's nothing like Blofeld.
What is he like in the books?
What is he like in the books?
Yeah.
The best casting of Blofeld would have been circa 1968 Marlon Brando.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Sort of the long hair kind of.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
68, 69.
Really? Okay.
He would have been the best Blofeld.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Although, it's like Donald Pleasance is like.
If you use that image, you can see why none of the other actors worked.
Sure.
Yeah. So was that way back then for You Only Live Twice? It was just kind of a decision to do a character more. They thought of a different look cinematically for him.
Didn't they have a different actor?
There was another actor cast, and he was kind of this Eastern European guy that kind of looked like Santa Claus. And,
really?
And they shot for a couple days, right?
Work out. And so at the last minute, they got Donald Pleasance because he was, I guess, available or something. And so they kind of uglied him up by putting that scar on it to make him look more menacing, because he's a little bitty guy.
Yeah. But he's Donald Pleasance.
And then for the next one, they got Telly Savalas, who is like this New York gangster guy.
Who's torturing you, baby?
And then they
Charles
the next
Gray.
one, they got this, very foppish comic.
It's just a jump to the left.
It's just a jump to the left.
Guy.
Right.
Raymond, was there any other actor that you would have liked to have seen play Bond?
Bond? Clive Owen.
Yes.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
When right at the end of the Brosnan era, I was thinking, God, Clive Owen would make a great Bond.
Mm-hmm.
He would have.
Right.
He would have. I was really disappointed that it didn't go in that direction. But
Perfect.
Is it true that isn't it true that the newest one coming out, the new Bond film, No Time to Die, I think Blofeld's back in that one, right?
I think he has a small number of scenes.
Okay.
Because he's in prison. So he's probably like the Hannibal Lecter.
Right.
Goes and talks to him. You say, "How do I get this guy?"
and the weird thing is,
did the cat go to prison?
But here we are again. That Daniel Craig has made it very clear that this is it for him. This is it. I mean, he's the big quote that he made, 4 years ago. Well, you're looking forward to doing a Bond film again? And he's like, I'd rather slit my wrists. And look, I understand. Look, the guy has been living it, breathing it. And fortunately for him, he's been able to do other things. But to be so into that Bond thing, then you can understand how these guys, Sean Connery and Roger Moore, how, it's fun to do, but after a while, it can really get to you.
It absorbs your life.
Isn't it kind of different though now? Don't you think that there was a time when, say, like with Doctor Who, And with James Bond, that, the minute you're identified with that role, that's who you are to the public. Whereas now, I think it's a little easier for someone to go from a role like that, because Daniel Craig's done a lot of other films.
Yes, he has.
It's a little less concern of typecasting, I think.
Yeah.
But it does make you think that, so after this, who I imagine you're going to continue to do this franchise. So who would be the next James?
Yeah.
Queen Latifah.
Queen.
Right.
Will Eon Productions continue it, or will they sell it?
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh.
Let me guess. Disney's going to buy it.
No, my God. Wow. I want to go to that land.
Can you imagine? No, it'll be a ride, Matt. It would only be a ride. It wouldn't be a...
Ride the torture ride. Sit in a chair with a hole in it.
No.
Be stalked by Scaramanga.
No, that's no. But so it's kind of up in the air, Raymond, as to what may happen after this.
It's going to be
anything you read about so-and-so is being considered for the next James Bond is BS.
Well,
right.
But isn't it true that at the end of the next movie, the 007 title will go to a woman? Is this confirmed at this point?
In this movie, what I know about it is that, at the beginning of the movie, Bond is retired. He retired at the end of Spectre.
Right.
So he's retired. So they give his number to Latasha Lynch.
Yeah.
So she's 007 at the beginning of the movie.
Cool.
Now, what happens during the movie, we don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's a good way to handle it, is just to have a new 007.
Right.
But not like, Janice Bond or...
couldn't they have given
We don't know what's going to happen to her.
Right.
Is she going to die? And Bond comes back? Who knows? We don't know.
Right, that's true.
I always wondered how many of those agents were there. So there's 001, 002, you get to 007, and then after 009, then it's like...
There's a 011, a 0012.
How can you be 0011? It would just be 011. It wouldn't be double.
No, it would be 00 because there's two O's.
It'd be triple, quadruple.
No,
15.
because
what do you mean no?
Because it's like your little speedometer. It only has three little sections.
Says who?
One.
There's a 0011 in the novels.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, who disagrees with you? The guy who created the whole thing.
I stand corrected, sir.
Raymond, was the 0011 in one of your novels?
I don't think so, no.
Now, after John Gardner had finished writing the Bond novels, then you took on that mantle, right, Raymond?
I did, yeah. Well, so you have to think that of the movie franchise is one entity.
Yes.
The other entity is the Fleming estate.
Right.
And they control all the literary rights.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are two separate entities. They're kind of like cousins. The literary people do what they want. The film people do what they want.
Right.
And every once in a while they'll talk to each other and, maybe go, hey, we're going to do this. And, let's cooperate here. Like when there's a novelization of one of their movies.
Right.
That's when they work together. Otherwise, the film people just make up their own screenplays and stuff. Mm-hmm. So when Ian Fleming died in 1964, he only saw the first two films.
Wow.
His estate decided to periodically hire new authors to write new novels to keep the character in copyright.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one was Kingsley Amis, who wrote Colonel's Son in 1968. And they actually use a scene from Colonel's Son in the movie Spectre. The torture scene is right out of Colonel's Son.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
The little drill, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
Kingsley Amis is credited at the end of the movie.
Oh,
wow. Cool.
Credits. With thanks to the estate of Kingsley Amis or something like that.
Wow.
So, but then there was a big gap because Colonel's Son did not do well at the time because I guess it was probably too soon after Ian Fleming.
Sure.
Right.
But it's a good book. So he only wrote one. Then in the 70s, a guy named John Pearson wrote a fictional biography of James Bond. It was called James Bond, the biography of 007, the authorized biography of 007. And it's not really a James Bond adventure, so to speak. We don't kind of count it as one of the novels, but it is a really great book. It kind of goes into his childhood and how he grew up, and then things he did in between the Fleming novels and stuff like that up until his old age. And he's now retired and telling his story to a journalist. So it's kind of an interesting book. There were 2 movie novelizations of in the late 70s, one of Spy Who Loved Me and one of Moonraker. These were written by Christopher Wood, but that's all they are. They're movie novelizations because they have the movies had nothing to do with Fleming's novels.
Right.
So they were able to do a novelization. Then in 1980, the Fleming estate, which was called at the time Glidrose Publications, Glidrose. And Glidrose decided, let's do some more Bond novels. And so they hired John Gardner. And he had a very successful run. He did it for a long time. He did it all through the 80s and in the early 90s. And in 1995, he decided that was enough. He was tired. And I had, because of the James Bond Bedside Companion, I had gotten to know the Fleming estate. I knew the man who was the chairman. His name was Peter Jansen Smith. Peter Jansen Smith was Ian Fleming's literary agent when he was alive. And he was one of the great literary agents. I mean, he handled Eric Ambler. He handled Winnie the Pooh.
Ooh. I know Winnie the Pooh.
Anthony Burgess was his client for a while. He sold Clockwork Orange.
Oh, Matt. Hey.
So he was a big guy, Well, I knew him. We got along. After the Bedside Companion, I did little odd jobs for Glidrose, so to speak. No pun intended. And I even wrote a stage play, a Bond stage play for him that was never produced.
Wow.
And finally, in 95, I just got a phone call out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it.
Wow.
It was Peter, and he said, Raymond, John Gardner wants to retire from writing the books. How would you like to give it a shot?
Wow.
Wow.
So I'm going, really? And what I had to do was I had to write an outline of a story on spec. And that had to be approved by the Fleming estate, by the British publisher, and the American publisher.
Wow.
Once that was approved, I had to write the first 4 chapters, same approval process. And once that was done, then I got the contract.
Wow.
And
But wasn't there a lot of pressure, Raymond? I mean,
Yeah.
come on. I mean,
but like to be a lifelong fan of all this stuff, of this whole phenomena, and then to be given this chance, that's got to be pretty amazing.
I'm still pinching myself. It was pretty, and they never had an American either do it.
Right.
And you had certain creative control over the continuity that you were going to use or decided not to use. Like in Gardner's books, it was Q's daughter, Q, right? It was a woman who took over, but you brought it back to Q.
Yep, I did.
Cool.
So you had some creative control there.
Yeah, well, before I started, we sat down to figure out, what my series would be, because we figured it's not going to be a continuation of what Gardner was doing. I could do what I wanted. And, we talked about, should we set it back in the past? Should it be contemporary? And they really kind of wanted it to stay contemporary, to be in sync with the Brosnan films, because they were really going full speed and doing well. Right. Yeah. And they wanted me to make M a woman, just like the Brosnan films. So I said, that's fine. I'll do that. But I said, I wanted to make sure Bond was Fleming's Bond. I wanted him to drink a lot, smoke a lot, and be a womanizer. I wanted him to have all his vices intact.
Cool.
And they said, if
good man.
That might be a little anachronistic in the 90s, but if you can make it work, okay.
Character, hey.
I guess I did.
That's cool. Were you visualizing any particular actor?
No. When I read the books, I never envisioned any of the actors. I envisioned this sort of shadowy guy. Have you ever seen the British comic strips from the 50s and the 60s? They were done by John McCluskey. Back in 1957, Fleming sold the rights to the Daily Express newspaper to do a weekly comic, a daily comic strip, the one little comic strip, just like the old-fashioned comic strips. And they were very faithful to the novels.
So they're like James Bond adventures in comic strips. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I got to check this out.
And they're available as books now. You can get the whole collection.
Wow, that's cool.
They're really good. But anyway, I kind of envisioned a guy like that, the way they drew him. the way they drew Bond in that. So I just wrote it that way. And then when fans would come up to me after reading my books, they said, well, somebody might say, oh, I can really hear Sean Connery say those lines, or I can really hear Pierce Brosnan say those lines. And so I thought, great, if you could envision your Bond while reading my books, that's great.
Sure. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Raymond, did you have to think like, I got to be a British guy because I don't want to say I used a flashlight instead of a torch, or I'm going to use the lift instead of the elevator?
I had to become British. I had to write British. So that took me at least 2 books to really master.
Wow.
And I went to England several times a year while I was doing it, and spent time over there. And I traveled to all the locations of my books. So
that's cool.
It was 7 years of adventure. It really was. And
that's amazing.
That was the best part, was traveling around the world and meeting a lot of incredible people.
Yeah.
And from the beginning of these books, did you, from the very start, have a map of where they were going to go, like, 6 books later?
No, I did them one at a time. But, I had to do an outline first. So I had to figure out, what's my story going to be? And usually I would sort of look at a map of the world and I'd figure out what a hot spot is that Britain would be concerned about. So, for example, the very first book, it was going to be published in 1997, which was the year Hong Kong was being handed over. And I thought, Hong Kong, why is it being handed over? So I did a little research, into the history and why, for 100 years, Britain owned it. And then they were going to give it to a communist country.
Right.
There's got to be some people upset about that.
Blofeld.
And probably maybe a British businessman who has his business tied up in British Hong Kong.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
He became my villain. And then I traveled to Hong Kong and China and Macau, where all that takes place.
Wow.
That's awesome. Every year. So
great.
Were there any other, as you're writing these outlines on spec and like the first few chapters, were there any things that the estates would say, no, not that, stay away from that? Like, really? Nothing. Okay.
No. There was one time when I wanted to go into his childhood, memories of some things in his childhood, and they said, don't do that.
Okay.
Keep it a mystery. Yeah.
Right.
Now, I picked up The Man with the Red Tattoo, where Bond goes back to Japan and reunites with Tiger Tanaka.
Yes,
Secret Service there, which was really cool.
That's
it's nice
cool.
to see him again. And this led to your ambassadorship, right? This book?
It did. Yeah, I traveled around Japan, and it was the year 2001, before 9/11.
Right.
And wrote the book all that year, and it came out in 2002. And part of the story takes place on this one island in the inland sea called Naoshima, and it's an arts island. Half of it was owned by the head of Benessa Corporation, which is a foreign language teaching class, foreign language thing. And he owned a magnificent art building there that had, it was a museum, and collected all kinds of art from around the world. And the building itself looked like a Ken Adam Bond building.
Really?
And I thought, this is perfect. I'm going to use this as my location, And so I had Bond on the island and everything. And the government of the island and that prefecture, a prefecture is like a state in our country. So the prefectures, they were very happy and pleased that this was happening. So they decided, to make me an ambassador, a goodwill ambassador, and I did that for 11 years. But they also erected a museum on the island about James Bond, and they called it the Man with the Red Tattoo 007 Museum.
Oh,
wow.
And it was around for 11 years as well.
But it's not there anymore?
No, I didn't even think it would last 2 years. It was kind of like, when you had all these art museums on this island, and here's this little dinky sort of James Bond museum. It was kind of like, like the largest ball of string in the world, kind of.
But it was it's pretty awesome.
It is cool. It was my museum, and they flew my wife and I over there for the ribbon cutting, and
wow.
it was deluged with press, and I was on TV.
That's amazing.
TV, and it was in business for 11 years, and it was very cool. It had it had artwork all around it that told the story of my novel, and then they had a lot of Bond memorabilia, posters, and toys and junk like that, and they had a whole case of my stuff, all my notes and things like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's very cool,
nice.
Man.
It seems like Bond was pretty popular in Japan too.
Oh, big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
James and I have a mutual friend named Roger Takahashi, who, if he wasn't doing the job that he's doing as drummer in a Queen tribute band, he would be James Bond. I mean, he lives and breathes it. He loves it.
And I don't think Roger's his real name, but he's such a Roger Moore fan that I think he adopted that name.
That's right. Yep.
Isn't it true that Roger Moore is actually more popular as James Bond in Japan than Sean Connery?
I don't know that. I don't know. Connery was huge. By the time of You Only Live Twice, that, like I said, the Japanese press was following him into the bathroom.
There's that sequence in Lost in Translation with Bill Murray, and he's there in Japan doing the commercial, and the director's trying to explain to him. He says, "Be like James Bond." And he's like Sean Connery. He goes, No, Roger Moore.
I think that's just a joke.
Yeah.
But
that's amazing.
When I was doing my research in Japan, I got to spend time with Akiko Wakabayashi and
really?
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And I understand it's very rare.
Wow.
After the fact, I realized how privileged that was because they don't meet anybody.
Wow. That's really cool.
In fact, I was at Mia Hama's house and she served dinner.
Oh
my God.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
How was it?
It was really good. It was Italian.
Oh, hey.
That's cool.
Also, what I love about James Bond is how it's permeated comedy and just all these other genres and punk rock even. Like there's a song by the Toy Dolls, I'm sure one of you has to be familiar with, called James Bond Lives Down Our Street. A really hilarious, funny, fast-paced punk song. And then you've got, I don't know if you're a fan, Raymond, of I'm Alan Partridge.
Well, I know who Alan Partridge is.
Yeah, there's a whole, one of the episodes of his second season, he's such a big James Bond fan, and he's going to have this marathon, and he's got all his cassettes, ready to, have this James Bond marathon, and all his tapes get accidentally destroyed when someone spills orange juice. So now he's got to act out the entire opening scene of The Spy Who Loved Me. And he does it. And if you haven't seen this thing, I strongly recommend that. I think you'd find it really hilarious because everyone's trying to explain the plot of The Spy Who Loved Me, and he's like, no, stop getting Bond wrong. And he takes over and he acts this whole thing out, and it's just beautiful.
That's funny.
One of the things I love about the Bond films is that puts them aside from any other, franchises, that stylistic introduction with the titles, the title sequences, the beautiful artistic, flowing images and, silhouettes and women being
lovely
shot
ladies.
Out, lovely ladies. I mean, that's something that really says this is a James Bond film.
Well,
that's something I always love.
Maurice Binder was the guy behind all that for many, many years through License to Kill. Then he died. Yeah. And Daniel Kleinman, I guess, took over after that. And
it's a staple. It's like a staple of their stuff.
That and getting like either a popular band or a popular singer to do some kind of song, whether it be Goldfinger or Skyfall. I mean, all of this,
Tom Jones.
Thunderball. I mean, just all of the great songs, all the great visual imagery. And then you have the stunts. Throughout all of James Bond, though, you also had kind of the woman.
Go around and say what your number one main title Bond song is.
Well,
oh God, that's so tough, man. I don't know if I have one.
I would say one of my favorite songs is All Time High from Octopussy. I love that one.
You can only do one.
Okay, fine.
All right, Sean.
Octopussy.
I think Goldfinger. It's just classic.
All right, James.
GoldenEye.
All right.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Live and Let Die.
Okay.
That was my second choice.
Mine, the James Bond theme, Dr. No.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Of course. It's true. Just that was right.
And
No,
that's where you
Raymond,
first see the dots for the bullet hole thing, right?
right.
Looking
I mean,
down the barrel.
It's the most iconic piece of music of the entire franchise.
You're right.
And over the years, I mean, there's been some back and forth controversy over how much of it was Monty Norman, how much of it was John Barry. Certainly John Barry orchestrated it and kind of made it what it was.
Right.
Do you have any take on that? Any personal take?
Well, it's kind of controversial. It's kind of hard to talk about it since Monty Norman's still alive.
Right. Gotcha.
From what I understand, he had the notes, he had the melody line, and Barry made it what it is.
Right.
Okay.
So,
That's it. Yeah.
I just want to say
Monty
briefly-
Norman gets the legal credit.
Right. Okay.
We'll
right.
leave it
And Barry always did like different variations of it too throughout all the films, and to great effect. But also, I think we in this podcast are always talking about how popular American franchises, how they influence other countries and have copycats and parodies. We talk about all the millions of Jaws ripoffs in other countries and Mad Max films and all that. But I mean, James Bond films, you had so many spy movies, not only in Britain and America, like the Harry Palmer films, the Matt Helm films, the Derek Flint, the Bulldog Drummond films.
Japanese films.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you also had so many other ones like Modesty Blaze, and there were so many, but especially European other countries. Like I have a book called the Euro Spy Movie Guide, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of spy movies that came out in the 60s and even into the early 70s. It's just incredible, the amount.
Have you ever seen What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Japanese spy movie that Woody Allen took and put a different soundtrack on.
But I mean,
and that original movie is good.
Key of Keys, right?
Yeah.
But
with Akiko Wakabayashi and Miyahama.
That's right. Yeah.
But it is astounding how many Bond influenced spy movies there were in the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
It's just incredible. It really created a whole other genre.
Hey, and if I could also give a shout out to someone who, I mean, when I think of those early films compared to now with CGI, I have to give a shout out to Derek Mettings, who did those miniatures. Who came from the Jerry Anderson
world. He was
world.
mostly in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
John Spears was the visual effects guy in the 60s.
Okay.
He won an Oscar. He won the Oscar for Thunderball.
Right.
I love that stuff. I mean, I miss miniatures.
Yeah, I miss miniatures too, and also any kind of villain's lair, the giant room, that's so artistic. Whether it's
they kind of did that in Spectre with Blood.
Yes,
yeah, they did. That's true. Looking now at 2021, another Daniel Craig film coming out. Where do you think the Bond franchise is going to go? Whether it's books or movies? I mean, is it still going strong? You think it's going to last?
I don't know. I think it's more and more challenging now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition. Once the first decade, Bond was the only real game in town. And then it started, then you got Star Wars and then,
so many other franchises.
Yeah. There's so many things that it competes with now. They have to really up their game and keep it up,
Yeah.
And, Barbara and Michael aren't getting any younger. And so I don't know what they'll do.
Yeah.
Raymond, can I ask you though? Do you also feel that James Bond, kind of a product of the times, as we move forward in our Me Too world and trying to be politically correct, James Bond maybe doesn't really fit as much as he used to. Do you think he'll evolve?
It's getting more of a problem. I mean, there was that time in the 80s after AIDS where they were, trying to dampen things down.
Yeah, with Timothy
Dalton. Bond was only going to sleep
like
with
a one-woman guy. Yeah, right. That's right. That's right.
There was all that. And then in the 90s, there was a lot of sort of politically correct stuff, Judi Dench challenges him there, the first scene that she has with Pierce Brosnan. She brings it up because
you're a dinosaur.
That was very much in the scene of the times,
Right.
So even now, who knows? I don't know how it's going to play.
In the 80s, couldn't there have been some sort of special gadget condom? You know what I mean?
There were jokes about it, I'm sure.
I mean, if Q can't figure this thing out.
Okay, so Raymond, do you have a favorite Bond?
Well, it's Connery is my favorite Bond.
Okay.
Okay.
What about you guys? I'm going to say Daniel Craig. Look, I love Sean Connery, but Daniel Craig for me is my favorite Bond. Yes.
Connery for me. I like all of them. I really do. But I think Connery is just a little bit above everybody else.
Connery,
but I wish that Pierce got another movie.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Pierce got a fair. I think he was cut too early, too soon.
Okay.
I like Pierce a lot.
I do have to say though, after going over all these films again, I really do enjoy them all, at least at some level.
Yeah, me too.
All right, let's go around and say your number one movie.
Oh, that's gonna be tough.
That's so hard.
Larry.
Okay. Look, I've said that Daniel Craig is my favorite. Casino Royale from 2006 is my favorite. Anytime it is on, I watch it. Nothing against Dr. No or Goldfinger. I like watching those. I do think because of the time, they're paced a little differently. I love the pace of Casino Royale. I love the brutality of it, the fast-paced stuff. So that would be my favorite.
Okay. Sean?
Okay. I think Goldfinger. I'm going to go with Goldfinger.
Yeah. Okay. James?
You Only Live Twice.
Okay. Matt?
I would say it's a tie between You Only Live Twice and Thunderball, but I'm leaning towards You Only Live Twice.
Mine is From Russia with Love.
Very good.
There you go.
Solid movie.
They're all good.
They're all good.
Yeah.
It's tough to choose.
But no one said Moonraker. I'm surprised.
Okay, well, how about this? Favorite Bond girl?
Oh my! That's even harder.
That's really tough.
Oh my!
I'm going to split it. I'm going to say between Diana Rigg and Jane Seymour.
I'm going to say mine is probably between Maude Adams from
That was my third one, yeah.
Octopussy, and I'm sorry, the lady who plays Pussy Galore. No, Honey Rider.
Ursula
Andress. I mean, when I first saw her come out of the water in that bathing suit, drool. So,
James?
Well, because it was the first one I saw in a theater, and I was so impressed. Spy Who Loved Me, Barbara Bach.
Okay.
That's a really good choice. It's so tough. Like I can't. I love brunettes, so I'm partial to like Martine Beswick and Caroline Munro.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's Daniela Bianchi.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Tatiana Romanov.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you're gonna win no matter who you pick.
Yeah, it is true.
Now, speaking of Bond girls, Raymond, you wrote a short story in 1999 called "A Midsummer Night's Doom" that takes place at the Playboy Mansion.
It does
during the Midsummer Night's Dream party.
Hef was the one that commissioned that. He wanted. It was the 45th anniversary issue, and he wanted a special Bond story where Bond comes to the mansion and meets Hugh Hefner. Hef is in the story, but also two playmates are themselves in the story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Lisa Durgan and Victoria Zadrock.
How did you happen to select those two?
I liked them.
They're pretty.
Perfect answer.
Well, I selected Victoria. Well, it was 1998 was the time. So I needed one of them needed to be Russian. So Victoria was perfect.
Was that Victoria?
And then Mary O'Connor sort of suggested Lisa. Lisa's Centerfold was just coming out in that July. And she said, "Look at this new girl, Lisa." And I kind of went, "Oh yeah, she's perfect." So I just kind of went with her, And
she was a big golfer. She was like an avid golfer, kind of fit.
Yeah.
So you got to hang out at the Playboy Mansion.
I did. And then for that, there was a party in New York for that issue that Playboy put together, and they got me and Victoria and Lisa to be a threesome at the party, signing autographs and stuff.
Wow.
Oh.
Awesome.
A little hot here.
Oh, what a life.
No, Raymond, we've just scratched the surface of your career, because it's amazing how prolific you've been and how many different things, video games, music.
Well, we can do a part two. We can do a part two.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, please.
Well, certainly you could tell something.
If you guys ever want to talk about Stanley Kubrick, I am an expert. I know.
Let's do it.
I know of the family. I've made just as long a study of Stanley Kubrick as I have.
Really?
Well, let's do that. We have to have you back for that because we are all gigantic Kubrick freaks.
Yes.
Maybe
lots of questions.
Maybe next time you make it to LA, we'll have you over. We'll have dinner and drinks and
martinis.
It's full of stars.
For listeners, Raymond is actually holding up a monolith. Well, it's a small monolith, but it's the monolith.
Perspective.
Yes.
That's cool.
But Raymond, can you just tell us some of the other stuff that you've done, though?
Well, I have written a lot of thrillers. After James Bond, I kind of had to reinvent myself and kind of just do my own stuff. But I do a lot of tie-ins of video games, basically turning video games into novels. So I did CLANCEY'S Splinter Cell. I did Metal Gear Solid, a couple of books of those. I did a Hitman. I did one of those. Recent one was Dying Light. It's a zombie game. But I write my own books. Probably my magnum opus, I think the best thing I ever wrote is this 5-book serial called The Black Stiletto. It's 5 books that came out between 2011 and 2014, and it's in development. It was almost a TV show. ABC had it for a while. Mila Kunis was producing it. And it fell apart like all things in Hollywood. But that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Cool.
My latest book is called Hotel Destiny, a Ghost Noir. So it's a ghost story for you horror guys.
Nice.
Perfect. And is there something right now that you would like to plug that you got coming out that's like we're going to hit the stores any day?
No. Hotel Destiny is pretty new.
Okay.
So that's my plug. Hotel Destiny, a Ghost Noir, available as an ebook or paperback. My website is RaymondBenson.com. On Twitter, I'm at Raymond Benson. And Facebook, just type my name in. You'll find me.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Raymond, have you ever thought about updating the Bedside Companion?
No, because I became one of the authors, so I can't. It's just, it wouldn't be ethical. How can I critique other authors or even the movies now when I was on that side of the line?
That's true.
That's true. That's true.
So it will remain a relic of the 80s.
Well, it's required reading.
Required reading, yes.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
Yes.
This was a lot of fun. I hope I can come back.
Oh my gosh!
Yes,
I'd love to have you back.
Let's do a martini toast to. Raymond.
Thank you so much, Raymond, for being with us tonight, learning all that you know about James Bond. It was certainly a lesson. It was such a joy. Thank you so much, Sean.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Let's have a toast.
All right.
Toast with my
James Bond and Raymond Benson. Woo!
Cheers.
You gotta do your guitar now.
Raymond Benson will return in Stanley Kubrick.
That's right.
Time for a listener shout out.
Shout out. Shout, 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 shout out, shout, 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 shout out.
A very special shout out. This goes out to Gina Sheridan.
What?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yes.
Hey, that's Sean's wife. What did we do for you?
Not only has Gina been a longtime and diligent listener and supportive listener, of course, but our listeners may not realize that she's been very, very helpful, especially during this time of COVID when we cannot be in studio and take pictures with our guests.
That's true.
So the pictures that we've been putting up on social media for each new episode.
To tease the episodes, right.
To tease the episode, we've been relying on Gina's prowess with Photoshop.
Yes, she is quite an expert at it. I usually kind of come up with a photo to give her and it's like,
don't take credit.
Just do your thing. No, but I always come with like these very, sometimes quite challenging concepts. And she always does a great
She's
job.
brilliant.
Yeah, she always goes way above and beyond. And she's a perfectionist too.
Love it. I love that.
I mean, I never know what to expect. And when I see it, I invariably give a chuckle. So
it always makes me happy.
Wonderful work, Gina. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We do.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thanks,
and Thanks, Gina. And Larry, I think you have one as well.
Oh, yes, I do. I just want us to give a shout out to former guest of ours, comedian and writer Jody Miller.
Woo-hoo!
Jody Miller,
Yay.
who's such a funny lady. She was on our best and worst sci-fi and horror deaths episode. We want to say a big congratulations because Jody is a new mom.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Hey.
Welcome to parenthood.
And Sean, what did you say we should get her?
Oh yeah, we should. I'll send her as a little gift the "It's Alive" trilogy on DVD.
Beautiful.
And by the way, Monster Party merch is still available on our eBay store, which is called Monster Party Store. We still have T-shirts, glow-in-the-dark Monster Party logo T-shirts available in various sizes. And the Monster Party cloth PPE mask is still available.
Cool.
There you go. 2 great items that you can wear.
That's right.
Yes, and represent your favorite podcast. And shipping, for the time being, is still free.
You're kidding.
Oh, fuck
Believe
you.
it or not.
Free? Still?
Free?
Shocking. Positively shocking.
What are we doing? Did someone come into an inheritance?
Oh, really?
Did you find a cabinet filled with gold bullion? Is that what they make to make gold broth? Gold bullion? Never figured that one out.
It's delicious.
It's so good. It's like Goldschlager.
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 And hey, and if you order Monster Party merch from eBay, and if you happen to be a Patreon member, you'll also get free goodies.
That's right. Yes. Donated to us by Jason Lindsay and Biff Bang Pow Toys.
Cool.
So you'll get a box, you'll get your T-shirt or your mask, and you'll see in the box there'll be, a prize, or maybe 2 prizes, maybe something I've thrown in from my own personal collection. You never know what you're going to get, but it's going to be good. It's going to be so good.
So what is this thing called Patreon? What's that all about? How does someone join?
Well, what you do is you go to patreon.com, you go to Monster Party, you click on the join button, and then you just follow the instructions. It's $5 a month.
$5?
$5 a month. And what $5 will get you, it'll get you bonus audio, bonus video, special downloads of books, and just all kinds of crazy fun things that we can think of to provide you to say thank you. Thank you for being a Monster Party listener, supporter, advocate, fan, whatever you want to call it. We're just so happy that you're doing it.
For only $5 a month.
And it's $5 a month. It's $5.
I spend more on vodka martinis, shaken not stirred.
So lower shelf martinis.
Well, no olive, I guess.
You do is like Kirkland vodka. That's the Costco. For the uninitiated, that would be the Costco.
But still,
vodka.
look, I could spend more money on booze, so this is like a great deal.
Yeah, and consider joining Patreon like we are booze. Think of us as booze. We're human booze, but we're good for you.
That's right.
And then,
are we aged booze?
Yeah.
Well aged food.
And you can mix us.
And we are habit forming.
We are habit forming.
Don't distill us though.
Yeah. And if you imbibe too much of us, it could be a problem. But until it's a problem, just go with it.
That's right.
And if you choose to accept this mission, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Monster Party TV, our Twitter handle at Monster Party HQ. Instagram is also Monster Party HQ. And hey, whatever platform you're listening to us on, please take a moment, write a review. We'd love to hear from you.
Mission impossible, but that's fine.
James will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
On that note, I am Weinhold, Matt Weinhold.
I'm Sheridan, Sean Sheridan.
I'm Struth, Larry Struth.
And I'm Gonus, James Gonus.
Keep America strong.
and read anything by Raymond Benson.
And watch James Bond movies.
Shaken, not stirred.
Is that James Mason?
In celebration of our amazing guest and our topic, I put on a special jacket and bow tie.
Ooh.
And
Nice.
And just really quickly, this jacket, I haven't worn since 2013. Okay. And I'm trying to find a nice fancy James Bond jacket. And I find the jacket and I put it on. And because it's a special Playboy jacket.
Oh, okay.
I look in my pocket and I go, what is this? I have something in my pocket. And I take out this thing and
it's a license to kill.
Yes. It's actually the 2013 Playmate of the Year Press Party Pass.
Wow. Get you, Mr. Bond.
I have it. Yes, because Bond was, into the sexy ladies, which I'm sure Raymond will fill us in all about.
Well,
This is news to me.
James Bond was in bed with Playboy for many years.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah.
Raymond.
I can't wait to get started on this.
And Raymond, also in honor of our topic, like Bond, I am not wearing any pants. So
I didn't need to know that.
I just thought you should, though.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Now Sean is joining us. And here he is.
Near.
All right, I'm going to kill you.
Okay. Wait.
And I promise that there are no more hosts of this show. Like,
No.
we've reached our limit.
Sean, did you not get the
I
memo
won't be able
about
to get a word in.
No,
You know.
Sean, memo about bow ties and tuxes? You didn't get that memo?
No, I did not. It was intercepted by Spectre.
Yeah. I got a snail mail from Smirsh. Smirsh.
Oh, telefax.
Spectre.
Oh.
Hey there, Raymond.
Hey, Raymond.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Thank you
How are
so
you
much
guys?
for making the scene here.
Yes.
Thanks
Yes,
for asking
cool.
me. Nice to meet you all. James, when was the last time I saw you? Was it at the mansion?
Well, there was the expo. We definitely met at the expo.
Right. I know
And
we
then
met. I know we met there, but I think I saw
Right.
you again later.
Probably at the mansion for one occasion or another. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was at some parties. I was at some, midsummer night parties and some.
Oh.
The devil.
Yeah.
I missed that whole place, man. That was a good time.
Yeah. Well, Hef and I were pretty good friends.
Oh.
Aww.
That's nice to hear.
It
That's
was-
so nice to hear. Anytime that we had to do an interview with him, he was just so wonderful and warm and charming.
He was such a film buff too. That's what's so
Oh.
great.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
you guys know Cinema Retro, the magazine Cinema Retro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magazine,
I've been writing for that since its beginning, and one of the early issues I interviewed Hef about all the movies that they produced in the 70s, like Macbeth and
Oh, yes.
Right. Yeah.
and he spent 6 hours with me, just the
Wow.
two of us sitting Indian style on the floor of the library, and he was just having a great time talking
That's
about it.
cool.
So,
That's cool.
he didn't want to stop. So that was just one of the best times I ever had with him.
I don't think enough people know or remember that he was so into the history of
Right.
cinema and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, not enough people know that, I don't think.
And he was interviewed so often about the magazine and about the Playboy culture
Right,
and
right.
empire. But if you sit down and talk to him about movies, he'd probably get even more excited.
Yeah,
Right.
he did. Yeah. Of course, he helped fund the Hollywood sign, restoring it.
Right.
That's right.
That-
Yes.
Actually, and Raymond, a lot of people don't realize that if it wasn't for Hef, that sign may be coming down. He was the guy. They needed something like $900,000 to finish getting funding to purchase that property so it'll never be touched. And it just so happened that I had to do an interview that day at the mansion, And there was all these other news reporters at the mansion. I'm like, what is going on? They go, oh, Larry, didn't you know? Heck was the last guy to sign the big check to save the Hollywood sign. That was that day.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, he had helped to save it once, I think, in the 70s, Raymond, and then because it was just Hollywood land, remember, it was falling apart,
Right?
and he got it fixed. And then the second time was to save it so it'll always be there. It'll never be torn down. Thanks to Hef.
That's cool.
That's almost like.
Have we started yet? Because
well, actually, just to let you know, I was wondering if it's okay with you. We normally like to put this pre-show banter at the end, kind of as like a little bonus. So if you're okay with that, so far, I think we're in good territory.
Yeah.
No,
so, but we will start this because it's going to be 3 to 4 hours, right? Because we're going to discuss every possible aspect of James Bond.
Well,
we're going to discuss all the novels in detail.
I plan to too.
Okay.
Two is great. Just how it all started, how it was created, and then go on to the book.
Yeah, and then of course we have a million questions, and we're ready to go.
Who might be the favorite Bond? But save that. Save that.
Yeah.
Save it.
No. I always get asked that. Always get asked that.
Of course.
I mean, favorites, opinions in the James Bond culture is a lot of fun. Who's your favorite Bond? Who's your favorite Bond girl? Who's your favorite Bond movie? It's just fun stuff.
Yeah.
Don't give me that. I know how you feel. I know.
After revisiting a lot of these films, some of my opinions might have changed.
Mine haven't.
Yeah. I actually have a new appreciation for a lot of the films that I originally thought were maybe lesser.
I don't dislike any Bond film. I just
I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even what I consider the weakest one, I still enjoy.
There's always we have to do this on the air.
Let's get started.
So Raymond, just to let you know what we're going to do is Matt's going to start. He's going to introduce the show. We introduce ourselves. We say what the topic is. And then we're going to go, and who's our guest? And James is going to give a lovely introduction. And then we go to town. Raymond, did you get your?
It's just water.
Not your
shaken, not stirred.
That's mine.
Fizzy, not still.
Shaken, not stirred. I actually have a third glass just for tonight for this.
Do you see the wall?
Yeah. Yes.
That's signed Connery, signed Brosnan, signed Roger Moore, signed Timothy Dalton. Signed George Lazenby, and that's Ian Fleming. It's not signed.
Wow.
That was made before Daniel Craig was Bond.
Wow, that's awesome.
Nice.
Up there is signed Ursula Andress.
Nice.
Did you know her bathing suit? Did you know about her bathing suit just got auctioned off, by the way?
I'm wearing it under these clothes.
No, because you don't have like $500,000. Well, it didn't sell for $500,000. No, it sold for a hell of a lot of money.
I'm sure.
That swimming suit. But it's funny because if you think about it, that swimming suit, there's such little material and someone is spending like over.
She's very, very nice. I know her.
Is she?
That's awesome.
Well, she's quite stunning.
She's quite stunning. And I remember watching that film and thinking, I want to be that shell.
This was a dream. I've been hoping for years that this would work out.
And you were happy with it? You were happy with the way everything went? We didn't stomp on your feet or anything?
No, I'm very pleased.
Okay,
I'm very pleased. There were a couple of notes, but it's nothing big. I managed to cover a lot of the big stuff that I had. So yeah.
So
a couple of things that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to?
Well, there was one thing in particular which is interesting to me, and that's the Bond songs that never made it. Like,
for example,
Johnny Cash wrote Thunderball before Tom Jones did his own Thunderball.
No, I didn't know that.
There's a Johnny Cash demo of Thunderball. Alice Cooper did The Man with the Golden Gun, a song that Debbie Harry did for Your Eyes Only.
That I heard about.
Yeah, and you can find these things on YouTube. The demos have, widely circulated.
That's interesting.
Frank Sinatra was supposed to do the Moonraker song, and that never happened. I don't know if it was going to be the same song Shirley Bassey ended up doing or a different song, but that's just a fun, trivial thing
My question to you, though, is what you just touched on, which are those songs, those demos, are they the same song or a different song but the same title?
Different song, same title. They were, I think, pitched to be the main title, but they didn't make it.
Okay.
Interesting.
And do you like any of them?
I don't like any of them as much as the final
What
songs
they went
that were
with.
selected.
Yeah.
But they were interesting. The Debbie Harry one is I mean, you know, it was 1981. She was, you know, on top of the time. And,
Yeah, that's in her prime.
I love Deborah Harry, but you know, come on.
Yeah.
For your
and she would have been, you know, ideal to do a Bond song. I also love the fact that Living Daylights has Chrissy Hynde have a couple of songs in that because, you know, Pretenders just sort of fits with the whole Bond thing. She did one of her videos was an Avengers.
The Avengers. It was the last episode of the Avengers. Yeah.
I kind of like the Aha song.
I like that song a lot.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's just
it's not my favorite, but I liked it more watching the movie recently this time than I did at the time.
Because it just doesn't sound like a
punchy.
Bond's. That's what it is. It's like, but if it was just a song that was playing on K-Rock and
you go, that's an okay song. Yeah, right.
Well, they were trying to replicate what Duran Duran did with View to a Kill, but Living Daylights.
See, that's perfect.
Yeah, and that was a big hit. That song too, View to a Kill. Yeah,
it's a great song.
They were big James Bond fans. They went to the producers and like, can we do the next Bond song? But Living Daylights is also what's your favorite score? Might have been a little too oblique, but I mean, mine is Living Daylights. I don't know if you guys have a favorite score. Yeah, you really have to
there's so many.
Honestly,
I like that one that goes.
It's like normally most of them are. It's just that song at the beginning with the title sequence. That's the one that sticks in your head.
But sometimes, I mean, I love John Barry is. You know, he's the guy, but sometimes I still like the non-Barry soundtracks too, like Spy Love Me and
Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die. Yeah, those are great soundtracks that aren't Barry, but they're still great.
Yeah, and I also you can tell when it's a really good score when they're using the theme song laced within the soundtrack and it fits.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there are some times where I feel like I couldn't give you an example right off the top of my head, where times where I felt like it's jarring. I feel like they're just shoving that.
Don't they do that with Goldfinger? Goldfinger, don't they do that?
Goldfinger, yeah,
they do that throughout the film.
Yeah, the trumpets all the time,
and even all the way to View to a Kill. He actually uses the theme song of that in this.
Well, he uses it as the love theme, right? With
I love that theme. Yeah.
John Barry in the 80s. No, you can't beat John Barry in the 80s.
Yeah, I know. No, that was good.
I get all that music. The Bond music is just that's a soundtrack that I can listen to.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Dr. No now, and what's funny is before they were really kind of feeling what they were going to do with the music, they just keep bringing back
True.
Every time you see
and it's funny too because also on Her Majesty's Secret Service is interesting because it has a great title sequence and a great music, but it's not singing. You know, it says dun, 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 dun,
you know, I read or heard somewhere that there were actually lyrics for that.
Really?
Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Please, like George Lazenby.
We should record this.
He is just fine.
No, it's probably like, look out.
His wife is going to die.
No, they wouldn't say that. They wouldn't actually.
Well, that'd be towards the end of the movie.
Well,
that'd be the reprise.
Yeah.
Well, plus we have all the time in the world. Louis Armstrong's last record, which is beautiful. And,
right.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
So I mean, this was a lot of fun.
Is there anything you'd like to complain about James Bond? Did we meet your standards of James Bond?
No, I got to trash.
No,
I got to trash Daniel Craig, and
see, why do you have to trash Daniel Craig? You trash him. That man sat in a chair and had his balls whacked. I mean, come on.
Oh, he did. Okay, wait a minute. Let's back up now. Daniel Craig didn't volunteer to have that done for real. That wasn't in his writer.
But does any of the other Bond go through the kind of beating that Daniel Craig?
That doesn't make him a great Bond because he gets beat up.
Well,
look. I qualified.
It's all right. He qualified
it. I know that the movies are good for what they are. I know that they're more Fleming. That's just not my Bond.
It's a taste thing.
Are you gonna see the next one?
Of course he will.
No, I'm not
in a theater because I've seen the other ones in theaters and I walked out disappointed every time.
Okay.
You walked out?
Well, you didn't walk out in the middle.
No, not in the middle.
After it was done, he walked out and he was like, I didn't care for that.
Well, I don't know. The new one probably is not going to be released in theaters anyway. I
have not seen Spectre. Is that any good?
Yes, it is. Spectre's. It's more like it's like say it hits the nostalgia thing really hard.
Because I didn't like Skyfall. I thought Skyfall.
I know you didn't like. I know you don't like that.
I like Skyfall.
But Spectre does. Spectre has a new Blofeld, so we're seeing for that.
It does.
Spectre.
Spectre does. I thought you were talking about. Chris.
And he's Watson or something, and he's in, and again he's credited in the newest one. So it may be like Raymond said, it's like a flashback or say Hannibal Lecter kind of thing where he's in prison.
He's an Academy Award winner.
I just think it'd be funny if then they went to the next cell over and there was the cat.
Yeah.
See, I wanted to ask about that.
The striped litter box.
Was the cat always part of it? Was the petting the cat?
Is he in the books? Is what I'm assuming. Yes, because
I don't know. Right.
I don't know. But we should have asked him that.
Maybe they wanted to get away with not showing Blofeld's face, and so they the
first time you see him,
the cat is. Oh, I see. Right.
Else.
Yeah,
a little teaser.
That's
adds
which is pretty clever.
Yeah.
I can see Donald Pleasance at the end of the day. Wait a minute, you put makeup on my eye. You're not even showing me. You're just showing my hands. Couldn't I have not done my eye today?
Well, what would have been great is to see a scene with he's always had this cat on his lap. And then you finally see his face. He has all these scars on his eye. And then all of a sudden you just see the cat go.
Yes, right. Not again. The guy from the cat. Right. It is interesting that like every Blofeld cast, the actors are so different. Like Raymond pointed out, like from Donald Pleasance to Telly Savalas to Charles Gray.
Charles Gray is I still enjoy that movie.
Totally.
It's still fun, but it's
very fun.
You don't really like Donald Pleasance. When Donald Pleasance is the bad guy, you're like, okay, this guy is a really truly horrible person.
Yes.
Well, the thing is, Donald Pleasance, he has that kind of
so creepy
kind of creepiness to him, right?
Yeah.
It's
like okay, just like we've talked about Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
Right.
When you watch Fantastic Voyage, the minute Donald Pleasant gets on the ship, you're like, oh, he's going to kill them all.
The first time you see him, you go, oh, that guy's got claustrophobia. He's going to go crazy.
Oh, he's not going to be. And as soon as he starts,
let me out.
Okay, guys,
that's pretty good. That's good.
That's very good, guys. Just to let you know, so my wife had never seen that movie, and. Had never seen it, and it just so happens that it's been playing a lot on that Fox channel. And my wife got up in the morning, and I had it on. She goes, "What's this?" And I went, "Oh, this is Fantastic Voyage." She goes, "Oh, I've never seen it." We sat and we watched the entire thing, and she just loved it.
It's great. It's a great movie.
It still kind of holds up pretty damn well.
I think so. I think the fact that nowadays they would do that with CGI. The fact that they built those sets and they really are still creepy and effective.
Pretty good.
Yes.
It's
and
good
that
music.
Sequence, the sequence when Donald Pleasance gets trapped and the white corpuscles, listen to the music. You listen to the music and the sound, and Donald Pleasance goes, get me out. How it builds and it builds. And that thing is slowly floating.
John?
It is
Let me out.
Guys, it is a terror. I mean, to this day, it still gives me chills. It gives me goosebumps because think to yourself, I'm going to get, torn apart and eaten by these white corpuscles. It's just
that movie. There are so many visuals that just flash in front of my mind theater. That I think about just randomly sometimes. Like what I love is that scene with Raquel Welch, and she's got all the barnacle things on her, right?
Oh, that's so scary. Yes.
And it's Raquel Welch. You're like, oh, hey, no, it's so scary and weird. And then that they crystallize. And then just fall off her. I'm like, this is a really weird environment.
That's the thing. It's a world and universe that you've never seen before. I mean, it's really because it's funny because like even later movies are like Inner Space is kind of a fun movie.
It's fun,
but that was like way more advanced special effects and the same idea, but somehow
it's not as
Fantastic Voyage sticks with you. Though. It's like
Sean, I'm with you.
I'm surprised I'm totally surprised somebody hasn't tried to remake that.
They will.
I mean, yeah. But
will.
The original film was great. It really is.
Wasn't there a Pixar animated movie where they go into the body or something?
Well,
I don't know.
There's Inside Out, which is
That's
more like it's
right.
in your
But
mind.
That's more like Herman's head.
Yeah, exactly,
right.
exactly. And then in the follow that up, at Disneyland, they used to have that ride Inner Space,
Journey to
Inner Space, and it was one of my favorite rides.
Me too.
Loved it.
The 70s animated cartoon is not bad either. A Fantastic Voyage.
If you guys want to come over, I've got beautiful prints of those on 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
Matt, I want to do that one day.
That Disney ride was great because if your feet were tired, there was never a line. You could go in there and sit.
Yes,
I know. You're right.
It was cool and comfortable, and you got to go in and see.
And you learned something.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And then that was in the Paul Frees voice.
Yes.
Oh, you're right. It was Paul Frees.
Yes.
And then the microscope.
You're in the microscope and you see the giant
stuff,
aya looking at you.
I'll take that to the spine-breaking Back to the Future ride any day. There's something simple and quaint about it, but I loved it.
It's a dark ride.
Yeah, it's a great dark ride.
It really is.
Did you guys hear that Tony Bennett came out about having Alzheimer's?
Yes.
Yeah.
So now he can't sing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" anymore because he can't remember where he left it.
Ooh, that's a little outside your joke realm. That's
too soon.
That's kind of
no. I love it.
That's
it is too soon.
Yes,
but that's what's beautiful about it.
I would guess that he himself would probably make that joke, so I think it's okay.
It's okay. You can make that joke to me and forget it a second later.
The Rolling Stones, they're still performing, but they can no longer sing "Time Is on My Side." It just doesn't work.
Okay, I like the Bennett one better, but
I don't know.
This is just a follow-up.
Okay.
Okay.
This COVID thing, it's very confusing. It's COVID thing. I'm glad it's finally started seeing into it because when this thing started, everyone was referring to the novel coronavirus. And I checked Barnes & Noble, I checked Amazon. I could not find a novel called Coronavirus. Okay. And it was just like COVID-19. I was like, I missed out on COVID 1 through 18. I didn't get any of the references.
Oh my God.
That one needs a little work.
It needs to be longer.
When this thing started, there was a run on toilet paper. Everyone's waiting on lines for toilet paper. So I got as much as I could. And now every time I go to the store, I still get a big thing of toilet paper. I got toilet paper up the ass.
Oh, you got to get out of Palm Springs.
I made a COVID YouTube video. It went viral.
All right. Well, this is more. Now we're getting back at least to the James that we know.
Are you doing shows in Palm Springs for retirement homes? Is that what's going on?
Plus, they closed all the restaurants. You can't eat in a restaurant anymore. In-N-Out had to change its name. Now it's just Out.
All right. I got $1 million.
That's my favorite.
Hey, you know what? Yeah. No, I had a genuine chuckle from that one.
That's a good one.
But you know what? And these are, you know what? I can't get enough of this. I want you to keep going.
I think it should be a Patreon exclusive. You just do it for about half an hour. Half an hour, just do it. We'll have a little rim shot in the background.
James's joke time.
I don't know. The thing about
James
Patreon is I want to share this thing with the general public. I don't want to make it just the subscribers.
No, people have to pay for that. People have to pay for that.
This is too good for just the chosen few.
The people who are giving us money.
I think what we should do is we should have you saying this and we'll do like a green screen you against a brick wall,
Yeah.
With a microphone.
Circa improv.
Cigarette smoke in the background.
Yeah.
No, if I did it with Patreon, you know what would happen if I did it with Patreon? We would lose memberships.
Yeah, we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose. I think number, right?
I think people would find this as adorable as I do.
Oh.
You know what? It could, maybe it could be part of something. Like if I did a robot sequence, and then
listen to him trying to weasel in on your fucking joke time. This is unbelievable. Well, maybe if I came in and helped him, I could save it. I could come in with, maybe I, mix it up with a little creature from the Black Lagoon impressions. It's Pavia's pun time.
No, I would not step on.
No, I know. It would be your own robot thing.
No, I was just saying.
No, he wants yours. He wants your time.
No, I was just saying if he has a 5-minute spiel or routine gig, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so we have to run through all of them, all the synonyms.
It's like I do my robot thing, which is like 7 or 15 minutes.
What was 7 to 15 minutes?
Yeah, and then you could tack on the James jokes afterwards.
tack on them at the end, right? Okay.
Because the point being.
Oh, by the way, James thought of some things.
Yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. But the idea is,
what's your robot thing? First of all, I don't understand. Is this just more of your toys, or is this an evening with Larry the Robot?
No.
Hello, monster partiers. Here's what's wrong with what you think.
You be called the Grudge Bot. I am Larry the Grudge Bot.
Oh my God, you're so right. You're so right. It would be the Grudge Bot.
I am programmed not to gifts at birthday parties that are not in the right proportion.
I will not let go of anything ever.
Why are you taking that out of the package?
I will not forget the wrong.
Self-destruct! Self-destruct!
Funny you
pontificate.
I could show off my autographed Gumby. That's autographed by
autographed by Gumby too.
No, it's autographed by Art Clokey.
Art
Clokey, who created, and I've got Clokey over here.
I know who he is.
Do you?
Yes,
really?
I do. Okay. Yeah, I like Gumby.
You know my favorite Gumby character is. Do you know, Larry?
Prickle.
Take a guess. Yes. I love.
Was that the dinosaur guy?
Yeah, because he's always pissed off and he's the cynical. He's like, I thought he kind
of sounded like Sean, though. Doesn't
I
he
like
a
him.
little bit?
I like Prickle.
Yeah.
Prickle is like the Zeppo of the Gumby.
Yeah,
Zeppo.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever seen Zeppo?
Yes.
Like in an old book, right?
No, he's in a movie. He's in one of the movies.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking. You know what I was thinking of? I'm thinking of Gummo. Gummo was the stage, right? Zeppo, yeah, you're right. Zeppo was in the early movies, but Gummo never made it to the movies, I don't think, right?
Gummo. Wait a minute.
No, not Gumbo.
Gummo.
And I'm sorry, who is Gummo?
Gummo Marx is one of the Marx brothers.
No.
I do not know. I thought there was only Zeppo.
I thought there was Zeppo.
Well, when they did all these vaudeville shows.
Yeah.
And Gummo was one of the brothers.
Really?
Yeah. But I think by that point he was like, yeah, I'm out.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I don't want to be part of this.
Did not know.
Who likes tons of money and,
Yeah, in immortal fame.
Although Zeppo, they kept trying to make him into the romantic lead in some of those.
Yeah,
and
I always heard that they said off screen he was really funny there. Many of them said he was actually the funniest brother in real life.
Well, also when Groucho couldn't do the shows, he would play Groucho, and they said he was brilliant.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, we put the makeup on, and who would know?
That's true. Yeah, he could. Yeah.
No.
Interesting.